Ginger Prime stands with a rallying call. Pixelit faith, standing strong through it all. The frame rate may falter, but hearts won't fall. Chrono rewrites what you thought you knew at all. Late to the game, but his wisdom lands clean. Skill checks are off, that's the price of a dream. Gaming kinda brings a chaos and thrill, dropping rare loot with unshakable will. Forte holds the line, grace under the blade, faith like a fortress that never will fade. Scrag lights the fire with a storm in his breath. $80 flat for unfinished quests. Joy-Con still drifting, my patience long gone. But I'll queue up at midnight, you know I'll play on. Pull up a chair, the battle's begun. Legends are forged in the light of the sun. One life, no saves, play it bold, take the lead. At the giving round table where the fearless plant every seed. Reshine by vein, bright and tree. Ride no please, rise to the fire, no checkpoint in sight. One heart, one strike through the endless night.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you happen to be just generally wanting to figure out what all this multiplayer talk with No Rest for the Wicked is about, well, you're in the right place. In this video, and we're doing this actually as a live stream, because here in about 30 minutes, Thomas is going to be jumping in, answering the community questions. Now, I want to set a little bit of expectation for those of us who have been diehard fans and been following this game so close since the beginning. There's probably going to be some questions that we already know the answer to, but hopefully what the goal of these Q&As are is really about reaching bigger audiences, people who might have stopped following the game after such a clear period of time. But as a preparation, I thought it would be really good to spend this time and actually kind of make the video that I've been trying to make all week. For those who don't know, we've been under massive amounts of deployments, lots of change requests. Things have been going well, but I've been so slammed. So there's been information that's come out, and I'm going to share it with you guys in this video so we can dive into it. Now, some of you, especially who've been following this channel for any period of time, might be going, what's up with the mustache, Brian? What's the story behind that? So I do want to say thanks, guys, so much for noticing. We are working on growing back the beard in and of itself. But I do want to share this with you guys as a thank you. If you guys either hit that like button or if you hit that hype button. For those who don't know, if you're on mobile, apparently there's a hype button. You can use 3 a week. Well, you don't have to use them here, but regardless, apparently it helps out the channel. I was in Vegas for my sister's birthday. The TLDR, my wife said I can shave it into a mustache to join my brother-in-law, who you can see here, as long as I at least shaved it into a monkey tail first, which is what you can see here on the left. So as a thank you, I hope you guys enjoy that image in and of itself. But there's plenty to cover, and we're going to spend a little bit of time today going through these various different posts. And as Yammer likes to point out, this is me just kind of summoning my inner 70s porn star. So thank you so much for that, Yammer. All right, let's dive into the content here itself as we wait for Thomas and the crew to go live. We will be also live reacting to that here in this live stream. I might take this and chop it into 2 parts or something like that for those of you who are interested. I do have a hard out as I have another meeting to kind of get back into this deployment mindset, and we'll go from there. Also, for those of you, I do see chat, but we're going to focus in on kind of the content of making this as a video for those of you who just want to consume the VOD as opposed to like being a part of a live stream or watching a VOD's live stream. However, if you are watching this as a live stream, tip of the hat. Thank you so much for being here. You are truly, truly legendary. But let's kick it off first. This starts off, if those of you who aren't aware, the beta signups, they tweeted this out. I'll also see if I can get a link in the description of the video for you guys. So if you haven't signed up for the upcoming beta for multiplayer, you can do so. I believe it is under NDA. So if I get in or whatever, I don't know what we'll be able to share, when we'll be able to share it. But as we get closer, especially to the Game Awards, I think it is highly possible that they are at least hoping to be able to use that for some form of marketing to help re-energize the community, especially around a multiplayer update. But they tweeted out, "Wicked fans, we've been waiting a long time for this, and so have we." Or yeah, reading. It's not my strong suit. You get it. For those of you who are live, you get to experience the flubs. So hopefully you guys enjoy. All right, take number 2. All right, so they tweeted this out. "Wicked fans, we've been waiting a long time for this, and so have we." Why do I keep reading weave? Like you. It starts with you. Let's get this right, Brian. All right. Take number 4 or 3. Either way. All right, so they tweeted this out. "Wicked fans, you've been waiting a long time for this, and so have we. We have our first co-op closed beta test coming up soon, and we want you in. If you want to take part, please fill out the questionnaire below. It includes a quick FAQ with everything you need to know before signing up, and we'll only accept a few players for this first test. Can't wait to see you in Sakura." And then they go on with additional things, like obviously promoting what we're going to be live reacting to here today, saying, "You've got questions, Thomas has answers, part 2. This Thursday, Thomas is going to be live and answering your biggest questions about No Rest of the Wicked. Drop your questions in and we'll see if they get answered." And for those of you who don't know, when it's all said and done, there might be some really good takeaways. There might be just a lot of information that if you've been following the game for any period of time, you already know. And that roughly starts at the time of this in here in about 28 minutes. But it goes beyond that, because what they went and did is they put up a post over on Steam going over everything that is the focus and why multiplayer and what they're hoping to do. So let's go ahead and dive into that now, stating, "Hey everyone, it's been a little quiet lately because we've been rebuilding. As we move closer to our 1.0 release, the team is in deep trenches, polishing systems and getting some wild ideas and pushing towards one of the most requested features, co-op. And yes, we've been playing Wicked a lot to ensure that when this update launches, you'll have exactly the experience we've always wanted you to have. With No Rest for the Wicked, we've always aspired to change what multiplayer could mean for an ARPG, not just joining someone else's session temporarily, but truly living together in the same world. A world that remembers you, whether you started a realm or joined one. A world shaped by what you and your friends leave behind." What it means for Wicked. They've always really believed the multiplayer experience in ARPGs lies somewhere between this and a traditional handed co-op, and how MMORPGs do more social than what ARPGs have, less restrictive than possible within an MMO. When someone joins our world in Wicked, they don't just pass through and they become a citizen of what can help shape, create memories within it. Moments like your friends resurrecting you just in time to beat an impossible boss, or you just logging and mourning and finding them peacefully finishing at the pond. Your realm celebrating after we finally have that exclusive item, that elusive item, and everyone wanted, or your buddy finding a particularly creative way to troll you. We'll just make it more full screen for everybody. So it doesn't end up get some of the stuff getting cut off. But they continue. Those moments become stories that you'll tell forever, stories your realm remembers. This is what makes co-op in Wicked so different, because you're playing on a persistent shared realm, and you and your friends aren't just guests in each other's games. You're co-architects of a shared world that belongs to you. Trading in Wicked, in teamwork here, is one simple idea: connection. You can walk up to any player and trade face-to-face or drop items into shared chests that everyone contributes to. It's organic, it's unpredictable, and it's already creating the kind of stories we love. Someone trading soup for armor or gifting a rare weapon to help a friend survive. Those moments aren't scripted, they're human. And we can't wait to see what the kind of co-op the wild co-op stories that you guys all come up with. Their vision for it, and for us, we've always tried to make worlds feel alive and worth caring about. Co-op takes one step further, turning a single player experience into something deeply personal between players. When you rebuild Sacrament with your friends, it stops being the city and becomes your city. When you fall in battle and they pull you back up, it's not just survival, it's connection. When you share a home chest and find something new inside, a gift, a weapon, food, it's a small moment of gratitude. When you spend 20 minutes arguing about furniture placement, and chaos becomes part of your story. And then you log off and you see what changes they made while you were gone. The world suddenly feels alive. That's the world that we want to give you. And that proves games can still surprise you. And not because of what we script, but because of what you can create together. For the community, they've been dissecting trailers, spinning theories, and catching every small detail we thought we could sneak past you. And we love it. Keep doing that. It's the best kind of pressure. There's even a fan-made FAQ with a link to it that covers everything from potential 1.0 plans to our stance on zero microtransactions. If you're not in our Discord yet, now's the time and the best place to share feedback and ask questions and show your favorite moments with new friends. So what's next? We know you all have been eagerly waiting the co-op update, and we're going to share the release date as soon as we can. And for those of you who don't know, release date in context of the multiplayer update, the main release date, which I know many, especially console players out there, are looking forward to. That is still on the horizon. It says right now we're focusing on tuning, polishing, and making sure our first session with friends feels unforgettable. The kind that keeps you up too late saying just one more run. So they also then go on to share a glimpse of a kind of a GIF of multiplayer. And if my editor is amazing, which he is, maybe we can actually cut that in to the edited video for everybody to see. But if you haven't seen it, this post is up on the Steam page and you can go watch it now. I'm betting that what we're going to be witnessing as a part of this live stuff today is literally going to be focusing it on multiplayer, which we have a T-minus of 23 minutes and 26 seconds. Now, there's other posts that they've shared in the Discord that we can kind of spend some time going over with. And I got to kind of clean up a little bit of my stuff because it only lets me share like up to 10 photos. So let's go ahead and do that. We got, dude, Trip, how have you been? He says, yo, Brian, how you been? Hope all is well for you and your family. Thanks for all you do, keeping us updated when needed. And very appreciated. Appreciate you so much. What's going on, Soul? How are you doing today? The FAQ is wild. Is that the link that we refer to? Because if so, maybe we can go spend some time on that as well. Just cleaning up so that way I can add. I tried to add them all prior to the stream going, and it's like you're limited to 10 images that you can share. So I'm going to get that rocking and rolling now. Boom, baby. All right. So, oh no, what did I press? I did stop the share. 1 second. I hope that you guys can hear the music. Go and share. Yeah, that would be actually a really good test because like I have it kind of low right now. I'll turn it up a little bit and let me know if you can hear it on the stream itself. They will be live streaming this over at the Moon Studios Twitch channel, and the link is the top link in the description as well. So you guys will have access to see that. Should probably click the right button. All right, 11, number 12. 13, 14. Cool. And just a few more. If they only let me go to 15, that would have been ideal. All right, sweet. Okay, let's pull some of this stuff up. Special thanks again to Zach the Slack who tagged me. There's lots of little conversations with Thomas. We're going to highlight that. And for those who don't know, if you don't know the release date, then there are no delays. I think internally that the multiplayer test has taken a much longer than they really anticipated. And this is due to how multiplayer really is. However, we are like every day getting closer and closer. And I hope, man, it would be really cool if they're able to kind of share with us that kind of detail here on today's stream, but we'll find out. All right. Thomas writes a big post over on Discord. He says, wait, that's not the important info, though. When being asked about, would it be nice to get any meaningful information about systems, acting like trading items and letting anyone push the upgrade town button is a novel design. He says, that's not the important information. I think that the that'll blow people's hair back is what they're basically turning Wicked into the first ever mini MMORPG. That's honestly a really interesting discussion in and of itself. We saw, if you guys haven't seen, like Final Fantasy 14 Square Enix laying off the West and the UK, big, huge swaths of their people division, and a lot of translation, a lot of kickback, a lot of discussion about why and why not over on, obviously X. But what we are also now seeing is them talking about rethinking, remaking, and Final Fantasy 14, right? Something that is more appealing to those who have less and less time. And I think essentially that's going to be something. I don't know if we'll explore that as a topic here on this channel or over on the MMO channel, but mini MMORPG, we've been calling it kind of MMO lights, but mini kind of before that is also kind of interesting to see because it does give Wicked does kind of have that vibe to a degree without feeling like there's a huge amount of commitment, like in a subscription or microtransactions. Well, bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see how it works out for him. I think it's a really good thing, and we'll have to wait and see if people also agree with that. All right. He says, meaning if you create a realm, it's now hosted on our servers and will always be there for any player who got invited to the realm. I think it is the bit that players don't quite get yet, and probably because it's not been done like that yet. Basically, it's like this. Older ARPGs, simplistic, host and guest model. You play your save file, I play mine, and we can invite each other to temporarily, but then we just keep playing our own states. You never really share a world together. You never really become a true RPG party. It's all about feeling and being that feeling being hacked in. Modern ARPGs try to stream a random effing player, so they create the illusion that you're playing in a world with others. But because these are completely random folks and oftentimes just AI bots, you'll never have any meaningful interaction with them. MMORPGs, great. Here you can have actual realms that are always there. But since you play with 10,000 people on a server, no interaction by any one player can ever really truly be meaningful. I might push back on that. It really depends on how the MMORPG is designed. I do think modern design, absolutely. That's a big problem with the current MMORPGs. However, with I guess more the sandbox and legacy, also when you weren't competing with social media and things like that, yeah, MMOs kind of had a little bit more interaction, but over time it has since been going and going and going. Anyhow, see here, MMORPGs are great. They have actually realms that are always there, but since you play with 10,000 people on a server, no interaction with any player can ever be truly meaningful. Souls-likes, they have the worst multiplayer of all. Temporarily invite some random dude to help you with the boss, and they get booted off your game. So all this sucks, doesn't it? Well, I think the solution is that we did, and we akin to the Minecraft realms, except that it's free and you don't. I'm going to hide the chat so I can finish that one. Work together, and the only way that you get those magical moments is that you just hitting the continue to play your game. Oh, look, your buddy is already out there fishing somewhere, and you can just randomly stumble across them. So Wicked will feel like a mini MMORPG, and that only takes 4 players per realm. But that now means that every interaction from every player is meaningful, and that is the only way to truly and finally fix multiplayer in ARPGs. IMO. All right, let's see here. Going to the next post. All right. In reply to our tagging Corpse Smeared Blade 2, the sequel, I read your feedback, and to some degree, I agree with you. For Breach, we definitely pull back on some of the things simply because fans have bombarded us with those requests. And I do think ultimately that's a good idea to listen to players, as long as I look at myself in a mirror and go, I may not be on board with this immediately, but I can still stand behind that idea. What that's happening with fast travel, and yes, what you brought up is ultimately the solution where it's going to be. There will be royal chests sprinkled throughout Isla Sacra, and those will contain resources, and that'll be used for very special things. Unlocking whispers might fall into one of those special things. I don't think you have to worry that we're going to go and do the WoW thing that Blizzard has done ever since Major Design, but ultimately, still, I have 1 second. It's popping up. Leave me go away. There we go. Little installer pop up. Do the WoW thing. The Blizzard has always done every major design decision. Ultimately, still always has to go through me. I don't think I should have the ego to always just make things go my way. Every now and then, we'll have players just bring to used a certain thing that might be better for the game ultimately, and allow certain things to have us designers and then work around the outcomes of those things once more, instead of being stubborn and alienating players. Ultimately, I think there's a major design to handle that. I think we'll handle that through realm mods in the end. I don't think we'll be able to make Wicked perfect for you, just as you can't make a dish that is the most delicious for every person out there. But what we can do is give you a menu, and you can pick what you like the most. And that is what would happen with realm mods. As an analogy, back in the day when I played GoldenEye and Halo with my friends and family, we got really good at both games. So it sucked to us when the default mode was all about draining health slowly. We preferred playing with License to Kill, turning it on for the equivalent in Halo, meaning one shot and you're dead. So now put yourself into the shoes of a dev. That's not a mod that you'd want to make the default for all players, but since most players would lose their minds if you make it that hardcore. But having that mod made those games way more fun for me and my friends. Hopefully, you see what I mean. Then, even bigger post here stating, by the way, here's how I explain our multiplayer approach to our family internally that think they should clarify pretty well. To me, the innovation of our side is hopefully this will allow to push the genre forward, and we basically adopt the Minecraft Realms model, but we don't even change for it. It sucks to have to communicate with others who temporarily create fake multiplayer scenarios and then just temporarily hop on other save files. You'll never truly share a world together, but you'll never be able to become a real RPG party like you were in an MMORPG. PoE and Diablo 4 have tried to solve this issue by just streaming in random players into your game to create the illusion that you're sharing the world with others, but who really gives a crap? It results in super unexciting stuff that you now playing with 15 other players and bots that all have to fire stupidly some at some boss. Great. Did you ever feel substantial? Did that feel substantial to you? Did you ever make a friend in D4 or PoE? Now, I'm sure there are people out there who have for sure made a friend out there in those, but it is going to be what it is. Anyway, no, you couldn't really cause they are all a bunch of randos and you're just doing the same stuff and streaming randos into your world. To me, just entirely wrong approach to fix this issue. Now, I do wonder, this time maybe more of a discussion, how much of this, like where we are at the stage of lives that we are, right? Like, are we busy with, you know, work, family, many other things, right? Like, there's so many other things that could be going on. I know that I don't necessarily, I'm not out there looking for randos. Like, if you're not in my Discord or you're not on my friends list on Steam or Xbox or stuff like that, like that's, like I'm not actively seeking that right now, but that could also just be a stage of my life. It could be a stage of Thomas's. I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially if you are always interested in those randos. I think asynchronous multiplayer is a really important part of these. The idea that it feels like even in Helldivers 2 is the best example I could kind of give you guys of asynchronous multiplayer because you have kind of this bigger, broader mission that's going on. So even though you and maybe four, three other of your friends are doing something, you are contributing to a bigger kind of goal. And it'd be really cool to see if No Rest for the Wicked ended up having something like that because you could have your shared realms, but it'd be really interesting to see if there was just like, hey, how many people, how many times can this boss be killed? Can you knock him out 10,000 times across all the realms and all the players? Something like that, where it's like, yeah, we did it twice. We took out a small percentage, but overall we're contributing to a bigger goal. That's, I think, something that I personally look and like about MMORPGs that have that player-driven economy. It brings in an asynchronous multiplayer to the approach. All right, back to what he said. MMORPGs are way better in that regard since you care about your clan members. But because of the nature of MMOs, you're now playing in a world that's completely fake and nothing you do really matters. And just doing the same stuff that everyone else does to get better gear and make your numbers go up, you'll never be the cool dude who killed Arthas because everyone else on the server also killed Arthas. You only way to solve this issue is to get closer to what the players really desire is to mine the approach, like what we're trying to do. You're sharing a world, but you're only sharing it with a handful of people. So no, the model isn't perfect either, but it is sure as a shoot to me that it's a lot closer to the things and they should be what has been done before. And let's please not even bring Souls games into the mix. Their approach to multiplayer is just he says retarded. Even if there is a moment of fun to have there, but you're temporarily inviting a guest to only have them hit the boss a few times and then getting booted out of your game, basically just hack the multiplayer, and also really create the feeling of you and your buddies being a true fellowship. And that is exactly what I'm ultimately after. I want to feel I'm playing Secret of Mana again. Oh, such a great game. Again, but without having to physically be in the same spot at the same time. I want those moments where we share a realm with Patrick, and I just randomly see Patrick fishing and farming when we log in the morning. Not because we had to make an appointment, but to get a call in order to set up multiplayer session, but because Patrick and I share a world and we're both invested into it. I want those moments where Sergey then also hops onto our game and becomes a citizen and tells us about a weapon upgrade he needs, but doesn't have the resources, only for Sergey to wake up the next morning and find the resources in the community chest because somebody tried to make him happy. Or moments like when people sharing a realm and someone finding a particular item that everyone wants, and now that small group has to negotiate who gets to have it. And those aren't the kind of experiences that you can have right now with most ARPGs out there. They're just weirdly fake and crappy spot where multiplayer never really feels like you're on a journey with your friends or you have to work together to make it happen. That's the vision that I think really is unique and I want us to realize. So, let's see here. Let me go ahead and add this to the stage. I think I might have to remove that and then add this. There we go. All right, so we do have it up. It has a countdown of 8 minutes. Overall, if anybody in chat could actually let me know if they can hear the volume, and I can turn it up as well. We can kind of make sure that we're set to rock and roll, that everybody can hear what Thomas is going to share. We'll turn him up. I'll make some commentary as needed on it. And again, if you just want to watch it on the link, then you can do so there as well. Boom, 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 boom. Subscribe to earn drops. There's drops. Okay. Thanks to Real Kitty Hawk for the tier 3, 74 months. Oh my gosh, 21 hours ago, that notification. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The more I hear him talking about this vision, the more I wish it flopped so hard. Horrendous ideas on top of retarded ideas. What are you talking about, man? What are the horrendous ideas? Let's take this out of the vague of trying to anticipate what you're trying to say and break it down, because honestly I always like those kind of discussions. Grimark says, one question I'm asked, but I haven't had an answer for this, is if I share my world with a friend and he kills a boss, will that mean I won't have a chance to kill the same boss? Not that same exact boss, right? Like if he progresses the story, then that world story progresses. You can also still have your own private world, right? So when you say kill that boss, you can have your realm, you and your friend can say, hey, we're not going to progress the story together. So it's, you guys are buddy. Or you can just have your own realm that is kind of protected. And that is going to be how that works. Now, I don't know how it generally works if there's a guest, because there's 2 types when you invite a friend, like you both are citizens, aka you both own that realm, for example. With a guest, they're more of a temporary person who can kind of hop on and play. I think that's also kind of appeal to things like that's going on here, right? Where we're all connected. I can bring back the chat on the screen. Perfect. Here we go. Like we're all connected, and let's see here. Can make it all. Hey, and make it a little bit bigger. Perfect. And so guests can come in, like if I was playing and hey guys, jump into my realm, and then we can fill it with 3 other people. replay, and then if you're not a citizen, then you dip in, dip out, etc. So I think that is going to be kind of how it goes. So you could actually have a realm, and you could have a friend come in as a guest and play while you're there, and then they wouldn't have access to it when you're offline. Versus you and we're making our own realm together, and then if one of us is a jerk and we do, like, hey, I thought we agreed, whatever, like that's going to end up being what it is. The entire concept of a shared world, he's acting like it's something grand when it's just survival realms. Oh yeah, I mean, like the concept of the shared world isn't unique. It's what would be unique is how they're choosing to use it, and we just kind of talked about some of the features there. And that is correctly why it's such a bad idea to give, like, again, nobody's forcing you into one thing or the other, though. Like if you were forced to have a shared realm, and you were forced to, like, again, you have so many choices that if you're upset, you're only upset because of the choices that you've made. Patty says, I hope the game itself will have such more in-depth of the crafting, the new materials, and upgrade weapons and improve skills. I do believe that is coming. They've talked about a lot of that. Can I get anybody in chat to confirm that they can hear the background music, just so that I know that you guys are going to be able to hear it when Thomas jumps in here in just under 4 minutes? He also talks like single player games have no meaning or weight, as if the way to make the game work is with other people. I didn't get that vibe from what he said, though, because single player games have, like, I think single player games have the most agency, and what people are trying to solve is how do we make multiplayer games give that same kind of agency that we can get via single player. And obviously, when you cast a wide net, like he's talking about with 10,000 people in an MMORPG, you sacrifice a lot of that agency and that impact. Says, oh, okay, so you can just do the guest thing as well, and they don't progress your game. Correct, because it's like that's why they have the citizen, which is a shared ownership. Then you have a guest kind of role that is not, like, they don't have ownership. That means that if you're not on and you're not inviting them in, then it's not there. So you have the ability and that flexibility. Again, you can have your own realm where you're just like, I'm just playing this by myself, and you can hop in across different realms with that same character, and that is something what's going to, like, help constitute trade as well. So you could have your own realm, your friend could have your own realm, you could both guest in those if you decide. You can make a shared realm if you want, where you both are citizens, owners of that said realm. So it gives you that flexibility. Now, how is it going to feel, and is this going to be easy to use and play around with when we go hands on? That's going to be something I think is going to be a big part of the feedback. Patrick says, I mean, multi is this can be quite rewarding and surprising. What I do think we'll see, and nobody's wrong for not liking multiplayer. Nobody's right for not liking single player. I do think that there is, no matter what, like a friction, because somebody who's like, I just want a single player game experience, yada, 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 feels like, why are they investing in multiplayer? They're not investing in the things that I really like. And I think what I would say is that they're investing in all of these aspects. And multiplayer is something that's really important for me, but I understand why some people might not necessarily vibe with it. Tree says, we'll still play solo if you want to play with somebody, if you both want to kill a new boss at higher difficulty. Yeah, pretty much. You can't hear anything. All right, I'm going to turn it up here. Test, test, test. Let me know if you can hear the background. I might need to turn this up. I had it turned down. So what I'm trying to see now is if it's coming in. I told it to share my system audio. No? Okay, 1 second. Stop sharing that. I go into settings, audio. I think that's set right. Share screen. Also share tab audio. On, off, on. Mute screen audio. So it's giving me the option to mute it. I think I follow a bunch of people. I might have to share window audio. I just worry that we get an echo. there he's back. He's up.
And we are live.
Woohoo! I think Corey might be playing, so Thomas can answer questions.
Hey, everybody.
Please let me know if you can
Hey,
hear
guys,
him.
before we start the whole thing, I think I can hear the Twitch thing, but it would be good if we just get a quick blast from you folks on, like, can you guys hear us? Is the audio good and so on? Let's see. Is everybody saying audio good? Yes. Corey, can we also maybe hear from you real quick?
Yep, hey, I'm Corey. Been working at Moon now for about a year, and I do QA stuff, so
Oh,
if
maybe.
anything's broken, you can blame me because I've not tested it properly. But yeah, that's about it.
Okay, so we're getting loud and clear and so on. Guys, so welcome to our second Q&A stream. On the first stream, we had this whole situation happening where I was playing and talking and thinking, and I didn't really enjoy how I played there. I didn't play basically in the best way. So today we introduced Corey. Corey will be playing for us. Just so everybody knows, we will be playing still the live build. We have a Wicked Insight coming up where we're showing everything regarding our co-op update and a lot more. But that will make it a lot easier today to make sure that I can answer questions properly and so on, and we can go through everything. Before we dive in, I really kind of like wanted to bring up kind of like the elephant in the room. Let's make sure that everything is good for everybody. Some people are saying game sound is quiet.
Yeah, I can turn that up a bit. After this crowd.
Let's make sure everything's good. So I guess there's always a little bit of setup here that we can't really test beforehand. So let's see. Are we good?
Check if this is good.
Mic a bit closer. Okay. Yes, I'm trying to speak into the mic, guys. I will do my best.
How are people saying it's good?
Everything's saying people we're good. Okay. So elephant in the room is co-op. So what happened recently, right? We released the breach and the breach refined, and obviously we promised, hey, the next thing we're doing is co-op. The thing is, we had always developed Wicked with co-op in mind, and I hope you will see that once you then finally get to play it. And I wanted to spend the first couple of minutes really just talking about our philosophy behind co-op and multiplayer in general in ARPGs, and specifically also for Wicked. So let me actually do that real quick and tell you kind of like how we think about it. So the way we approached it is we looked at basically, it's basically the same design thing that we always do, right? We looked at, well, what are the experiences out there? What has already been done? And what are the experiences people have right now? And how could we improve upon that? Simply because that's always what we are trying to do, right? Like with Ori, we made Metroidvanias and we asked the same questions, like how could we make that thing better, right? And we did the same thing here. But in order to properly explain that, I want to look at the past real quick. So when Diablo came out, Diablo 1, Diablo 2, etc., the multiplayer model that you had there was basically a fairly, I don't want to say simple, but a fairly straightforward host and guest model, right? So what happened normally, and that then was taken over by basically everybody for the next 10, 15 years or so, right? Was that you were able to create a game and then you invited other players into that game, which was great, right? Like you could play together and you could slay demons together and level up and so on. But the thing that always kind of like bothered us was that even though that was the case, we never really felt like that you truly became an RPG party like you did in those magical moments when you first, hosted a D&D session or something, right? Simply because, and that's what we thought, simply that it was simply because what really happened was that you just shared your save file temporarily with another guest, right? So you could temporarily invite someone, and then after that was done, they would play their save file and you would keep playing yours, right? So to us, it never really felt like that, that camaraderie or that the idea of like building a fellowship and so on, that never really came across. Then what happened with more modern ARPGs, right? What was the way that designers tried to solve that problem was that they started streaming random players into your game. That solved the problem to a certain degree in terms of like, hey, even if you play alone and your friends are not there or something, that other players are there and you don't feel quite as lonely. But I think what happened there really after you played that stuff and experienced it is that in those modern ARPGs, you are seeing more players being streamed into your world, but you still feel kind of lonely. And I think it's a similar phenomenon that happens with social media, right? Where it's like, hey, on social media, I have tons of friends, but you don't really, right? And so then we looked at all the other experiences. We obviously looked at MMORPGs, all the way back to Ultima Online and so on, and through World of Warcraft and all of this kind of stuff. And we liked a lot of what happened there because in those games you shared a world together, right? So automatically what that meant is that you started caring about your clan members, and community meant a lot more than in typical ARPGs, right? But the problem that we always had with MMORPGs was that massively component. You basically played on a server with 10,000 other people. So what automatically happened then was that you could never really become the hero of that server, right? It's great if you kill Arthas, right? But then so did 5,000 other people on the realm that you were on, right? So it never really felt like you could have any meaningful impact on those realms. And then there's the Souls-likes. So basically what happened with Souls is that they introduced some interesting mechanics where you basically were able to stream in other players so that they could help you with your game, so that they could temporarily jump in and so on. But you had the same kind of issue there, right? Where, hey, I defeat a boss with other players, but then they immediately get kicked out of my game, right? So again, we feel like the same thing happened there, where it never really felt like, hey, you're, really becoming this RPG party. You're becoming this fellowship, right? That really plays through the game together. And we always felt like that's what people really want, right? Like there's even like some crazy people that built a co-op mod for Elden Ring and so on. But it was never fully supported in the way that, like, from the developer side, right? In the way that we thought would make a ton of sense. And by the way, guys, I'm not kind of like watching Corey right now. I will do that a little bit more. So I hope he plays in a very entertaining way. Corey was also the person
I really
who
hope that
uploaded the first hardcore playthrough. Within like 4 hours, he bashed through the entire game in hardcore. So I think he will play quite well. But let's go back to the multiplayer.
I hope they have
thing.
somebody join him.
So what we really tried to do
That'd be
with
cool.
multiplayer was to combine the best of both worlds, right? To try to get all this good stuff that was established in ARPGs, but then also get the really good stuff that was done in MMORPGs and basically combine that. And the only way we saw that working was by basically giving players a persistent shared realm. So right now, when you play Wicked, you have to create a realm. And that goes back to what I just said about Wicked from the start was created with multiplayer in mind. By the way, that does not mean that you will not have fun anymore in single player once we release multiplayer, right?
Some people are
always
worried.
Also made sure that, hey, a lot of players will never play multiplayer. That's okay. The single player should, always be totally fun. We don't do things like, hey, in this dungeon, you can only advance if, you have multiple players and so on. But there should still be meaningful interaction. But basically, what the persistent shared realm means is that right now you only play single player realms. Once you invite other players, once multiplayer launches, once you invite other players, you get a little pop-up and it asks you, hey, if you really want to turn your realm into a shared realm. And then the nice thing that happens, and we're quite proud of that, is that that becomes basically like your own private server. A lot of games in the past have already allowed you to do that, right? Like you can, or you were able in games like Terraria or Minecraft, I think, and so on, right? Like you were able to create a private realm, but you needed to get a PC, set up some executable, and it wasn't straightforward, right? It was kind of like clunky to do, but it was a good way to kind of like for people to jump in at all times, right? Even if the host is not there. So what that means is that I think the best way to kind of like explain what we're doing with Realms in this coming update is that we are basically doing the same thing that Minecraft does with their realms, but we're not charging you for it. So it's completely free. Having a persistent online realm, you will not have to pay a single cent for it. But that opens up really interesting scenarios where you will be able to host a realm, you invite your friends, and at some point you might have to leave, but your friends will always be able to keep playing. So even if the host is not there or if nobody else is on the realm, you will be able to keep advancing the realm, and you will be able to, you know, just loot and level and enjoy everything. And then once your friends pop back in, they actually see all the stuff that you did, right? Like what
And they're
items you
either
took in the
happy or
community chest,
why didn't you wait for me?
what house you bought, what changes you made to Sacrament, project like resources that you contributed to Danos, and all of this kind of stuff. We think that makes a huge difference, and we think once you will actually play, you will notice that difference. Because I just on Monday ran a playtest with my best friend, with the friend that I actually played games like Secret of Mana together when I
Yeah.
was like 8 years old.
Great game.
And it was quite magical because we played together in that way. Everything ran well. We encountered no issues, and we did have all these really cool scenarios where we traded items, where we helped one another, where we based our classes, like made our class decisions based on, you know, who is what. Like he played a mage build, I played a warrior build, and then we adjusted kind of like the way we play through our game. And then what happened is that he had to go offline, and we just got to the point where we, you know, like went into the tier 2 areas and didn't have iron tools yet and so on. And that really started to suck because it took a lot of time to kind of like cut down trees, farm some ore and so on. And then after he left, I kept playing for a bit, right? And I started crafting all these tools for us and so on. I put that stuff in the community chest, and I literally just popped him a message on my phone saying, hey, all of this stuff is available for you now, and so, you know, next morning you can grab it, right? And that creates a really interesting scenario, and a really, really interesting experience, because now you actually, I think for the first time in an ARPG, share world together. So in many ways, it is almost like playing an MMORPG, but without the massively, right? So instead of playing with 10,000 people on a server, you will be able to invite up to 3 other players for a total of 4 players per realm. And that also means we can, like every player can make meaningful decisions on the server, right? Like if you are the guy who beat a particular boss, you're the guy, right? That kind of thing. Let's see actually if people understood this concept, because I think that's a fairly difficult concept to grasp, because this is the kind of thing that I haven't really seen done in other games. So excuse me for quickly just checking the chat and so on. I just want to see real quick how people react to this, because we want to use those Q&As to also kind of like see, like, take temperature. How do people react to things? Give me one sec.
Needed to catch up.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, people went through this stuff, right? Where it's like, hey, I have to make a Valheim server and so on, right?
Oh, that's awesome to hear, Nightmare.
It's never quite straightforward, right? We want to, you know, take that Apple approach where we just make it really casual and simple. You literally just press a button and boom, that world is now always there for everybody. and you don't have to pay shit for it.
Yeah. I
We are
do
eating
wonder
all
because
the
like if
costs,
they're going to be hosting the
so
servers,
the player
that's
doesn't
an
have to
ongoing
pay
cost, right?
anything, right?
And there's no microtransactions. I guess it's going to be. I wonder if we'll see like an expansion model that hits every year, for example. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. And then yes, Titus, like teaming up. If you guys are having problems, I think that's going to be one of the things they probably devote a lot of stream time to.
We do have servers all around the world, but this is also why we will have a closed beta at the start, because we want people to basically just report things. If you get bad ping or something, please make sure you just report that, right? We'll make sure that we scale things nicely, so that, you know, what we ultimately want with all of this, and let's go into that as well, because some players were obviously annoyed that we did this ridiculous thing where we have early access, but then we do a closed beta within our early access period. But multiplayer is always really, really difficult to tackle, right? Like you see that even with the with really expert developers and so on, they often stumble and don't really launch in a state that it should have launched, that is said where we're all aware of error 37 and so on. So we just want to be extra careful that everybody, when we launch, hopefully, and I say hopefully, right, because you never fully know with multiplayer, but hopefully has a really good experience and we scaled everything the way we should have. Oh, is Mike closer? I'm trying, folks.
See, I didn't know that, Borlinch. That's good to know that others do it, because
how you guys
early
playing?
access is a way to sell and make money now, which it's thinking kind of an MVP, minimal viable product.
You know, somebody that works at Moon can play the game.
Well, while he also talks and answers questions, it's a skill. Like being a game streamer, there's a skill that you need to build.
More been asked here. I just hope co-op doesn't make it much easier. So I really have to be careful that I don't say too much, right? There's a lot of stuff that we want to keep for Wicked Inside, where we really go into all the details, all
When's the Wicked Inside?
We dive into how everything works. But I can already tell you that, well, we handcraft this huge open world, the Solar Sacra, basically, right? And so it just felt natural for us that we should also do the same, and we hand place all the enemies and so on, right? And we did that for single player, so it just felt natural that we should always also do this for multiplayer. So whatever experience you have right now, if you roam through Mariner's Keep with 2 players, you will get different enemies to spawn there, more enemies, different kinds of enemies, more difficult enemies, that kind of thing. And then that also changes if you play with 3 players or 4 players and so on. So you will get these experiences where if you play with 4 players, oh my God, suddenly there's a huge enemy spawning in that spawned in the fortress, and now you kind of like have to work together to make things work. There is a slight stat scaling, but we didn't want enemies to feel like damage sponges, right? Like it should still feel like No Rest for the Wicked and not artificially, procedurally, like artificial procedural shit, right? We just wanted it to still feel like what you know from single player, but just adjust the challenge basically. And there's some really cool stuff there where you know,
we need to see if they added in different mechanics,
come out of holes that they never came out of before, simply because you are playing with more players.
Like with like adding in either more ads or something like that, where like in a single player or 2 player, it's like, yeah, not only is it a stat up, but it's like, oh yeah, now there's more things that you kind of need to hit or manage. I don't know. I'd be curious to see how you guys feel about that.
Okay. It seems like people understood what I was talking about. In many ways, I mean, I am trying with our team, right, to kind of like recreate those experiences I had in the past, but improve upon them. I don't know if people are old enough to have ever played games like Secret of Mana on the Super Nintendo and so on, right? But that was kind of like the first action-adventure Zelda-style thing that actually allowed you to play in multiplayer. And to me, playing that was kind of magical back then. But still, with Secret of Mana, you had this thing, obviously, where everybody had to sit in front of the console, right? And even back then, I always dreamed of this whole thing of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if, you know, like, I played the second character in my thing, right? Like, I played a little troll lady, and I just want to level even if my buddy isn't around, and then I want to surprise him with, hey, I'm already like 3 levels higher, and I did this and this and that, and I already upgraded our weapons and so on. And now, whatever, almost 30 years later, we finally get to realize that vision. So that's the whole idea. Let me jump into the other stuff that we prepared. Yeah, so we already kind of like explained the private and public PTR thing. There will be a private closed beta that we're doing pretty soon, where everybody will get to play multiplayer.
They did it over Thanksgiving
this is
break.
Not just a
God bless
marketing
you.
thing, right? We will want to know exactly, hey, yeah, if you're playing in South Africa, just tell us if the ping is good enough for you. It should be. We try to do everything to make sure that, you know, wherever you are in the world, China as well and so on, that you should have good ping. We can't guarantee it just yet, so please just keep us informed, and we'll make sure that we scale everything appropriately. Then after that, there will be also a more public PTR, meaning it's not yet just everybody has it, right? But we'll also scale that to a larger amount of a larger number, basically, so that more and more people get to play it, and we just basically try to guarantee with that we should land this launch pretty solidly. One big question that obviously came up is, how does housing work in multiplayer?
Yes.
So let's answer that. That's another whole thing. So I just played a playtest recently with 3 players, and the way we scaled the economy, and by the way, guys, there's many changes with the co-op release, right? Co-op does not just mean, hey, you're playing Twitch Refined, but with co-op tagged on, there's more changes. Ari just told me recently that we committed to our code base from the time of, you know, Crucible to Breach Refined, or to the Breach update, right? We actually committed more stuff and made more fixes and so on in the current period, from Breach Refined to now, basically. So there's a ton of stuff that has already changed.
Naturally.
And a lot of the things, obviously, we look at the forum all the time. We look at Reddit, we look at the Steam boards and so on. And
dang, my elbow.
Perfect. So again, same thing. If you get to play the multiplayer, this also has a lot of systemic changes in there, and we'll want to hear your feedback, right? Let's see how you guys like what we came up with. Let's get back to the housing. So the housing permissions, we played this 3-player session where it was interesting because we scaled the economy in a way where buying a house early on is really expensive, right? Like you have to pay like 30 silver or something for a house that you want. But we introduced a whole permission system for co-op. So basically what that means is that if you put all your money together, right, you can buy a house fairly early, and then you can share that house. There's this little house plaque outside everybody's house that everybody can walk up to, and then, you know, like basically make changes, right? Like the house owner can. And that means that one person can buy a house and basically give permissions to everybody else, right? And this way we were able to share a house. We entered the house, just put all of this, all of our stuff there and so on. And then the other thing that we did is we also put the permission system on every single container that we have, meaning every chest, every cupboard, everything, so that even if you share a house, you could still organize things so that, you know, people can steal your stuff. We thought that is quite important still, that if you have really good items and you are sharing houses and so on, that that you can still keep your own thing private. The thing that the other player will see if you basically locked a chest, so that only you can open it, is that they will just see it as a locked chest and will get a message of who the owner is. So
there's going to be some new stuff, but not necessarily in terms of content, like new zones and you know, we'll see. They are working on some of that stuff, but I think the next big content update is on the way. But who knows? We'll see. We'll see what they kind of put in. It's
I'm gonna go through.
Gonna be some good stuff, and
order, so
but I wouldn't expect.
If I didn't answer something yet, then I probably will by the end of this, and if not, then you can still throw your questions in, and we will see if we can answer everything. Corey didn't even bit work yet.
Nope. Just
Christ.
having fun, you know. If you want me to start speedrunning, though, you know.
No, don't do it. We will be giving away keys in the stream. Apurva will just send me that stuff, and then we'll see. Okay, let's go over the next question, the next thing that was asked. And obviously the class system comes up a lot. So let me dive into that as well. Just so for everybody who wasn't up to date, I'll just give you a little bit of an update on the class system. So basically,
Yes,
the
class.
design
Let's go.
issue that we saw that we wanted to fix, it's not necessarily a huge issue, but it was one of the big heart transplantation things that we had to do, or that we still wanted to do before we ship 1.0, is that the leveling experience, we initially started with a system that is very similar to things like Fallout and Dark Souls and so on, where once you level, hey, you put a point into attributes. Meaning, hey, you can put a point into health or strength or stamina or focus or equip load and so on. And then through that, you're basically creating your build. But after we saw how everybody played Wicked, and we played a crap ton of it ourselves, right? Like a lot of kind of like issues became apparent to us with these systems, and these issues have never really been solved with attribute systems, which means that, for example, with attribute systems, usually a lot of times what happens is that if you're like, first of all, players often don't want to spend their attribute points, right? Because they do not know at the start yet what makes for the best build, right? So that often leaves them in a kind of like dire spot where they just don't know yet what is efficient and so on. It's not necessarily an easy concept to understand for someone who's not already familiar with systems like that. The other thing that we're seeing is that it generally in design does not give us the amount of flexibility that we wanted, right? So basically in any attribute system, what you're usually doing is, if you break it down design-wise, you're really just upping the numbers a little bit. Meaning, if I put 3 points into health, cool, now my health goes up by whatever, let's say 10%, right? But that is literally all you're doing. Then you have other systems like box systems and so on, where it's just, hey, and in order to equip this weapon, I need to have X amount of points put into strength, for example, right? And what we ultimately wanted to do, and we saw that in, we got inspired by games like Final Fantasy Tactics and so on, was to go into, like, basically introduce a system that would allow us to keep our soft class system. That's another thing to clarify, because when people hear class system, a lot of times they're thinking, well, Diablo, right? Where it's like, hey, once you pick a barbarian at the start, you will always just play barbarian, right? And that's not the system that we're going with. The system that we are going with is still a soft class system, meaning that it is based on your weapon. If you pick a dagger, you will play an assassin. If you pick a greatsword, you're leveling into a knight and so on. Every class has a certain number of traits, and every class has weapons and runes and so on assigned to them, right? In order to get runes, to be able to extract them, use them on everything and so on, you have to master the weapons. That's at least like the current implementation. We're still debating this a bit, but you gain SP right now, skill points, basically every time you defeat an enemy and so on. That is what you buy your traits with, and traits are basically replacing that leveling experience that you normally have, where if your character levels up, boom, now you have now you put some points into attributes. We're kind of like merging all of that together, right? So that every time your character levels and you gain enough SP and so on, you can put some points into these traits. And traits just allows us to do all this kind of stuff that wasn't
I wish they'd show it
before. Meaning we can put in traits which just, hey, you might want to use the traits from the assassin on, let's say, the squire build or something, right? Where, if you find yourself backstabbing a lot, some of these assassin traits might be really fun for you, right? That kind of thing. Traits can be interchanged between classes, because ultimately what we want is that people, like, we want to see it as like, hey, we give you the tools, but we don't want to constrain you that much. We are giving you certain guidelines where we say, hey, if you want to play a paladin, here you go, right? This is how Moon Studios, the designers, have prepared the paladin. Here's the kind of weapons. Here's the runes that you can use. You can mix and match that. But ultimately, it should be up to you, because you can mix and match. And at a certain level, right, of options that you give the player and so on, the math just becomes kind of crazy. So the amount of builds people can come up with by just mixing and matching and combining things and so on becomes pretty crazy. So that's the system that we are going with. That's the system that we implemented right now. That's the system that we're testing. And there's a ton of good stuff that we already saw in playtests now, right? So one of the things, for example, I'll highlight something that I think I would see as a negative right now. One of the things that we're constantly seeing is that players defeat a boss and get lucky enough that a really good weapon drops, but now they can't use it because the weapon dropped and needs certain attribute
that's me,
requirements
hands
that
down.
aren't actually that you don't actually have, right?
New character.
So, like you play a mage, you kill a boss, and a great sword drops, and oh crap, I don't have enough faith or I don't have enough strength. So at that point, the loot is kind of whatever for you, right? With the class system, that obviously does not happen. What happens there is that it's still a weapon that you could use. You just switch to it, you can always equip it, and now you're leveling into that character. And that's just automatically making the itemization more interesting and so on. You can mix and match everything, etc. And you don't have to respec anymore. Let's check real quick if people understood all of that and how they feel about it. You don't need talent resets, simply because you can mix and match traits at any point anyway. So that whole respec thing basically goes out of the window. And then it becomes a progression game, basically, right? Like you will still have to spend quite a lot of time on actually mastering the classes, right? I think it will be very interesting to see who will be the first person who masters every single class that we have prepared. And right now we're looking at a lot of classes, because basically the way we did it is that we looked at our weapon archetypes and basically designed the classes around that. So I know the number sounds crazy, but right now we're looking at 26 classes already. But that, should give people a good amount of variety to actually of classes to play and to level. Let's see. Yes, there will be quite some crazy classes. So don't worry, and we'll definitely introduce more and more stuff. Sounds good. Dum, dum, dum.
I must pay a visit. Think you're up for chasing down a few bounties. I told El that
Rory, what's your plan?
Gonna do some
What are you doing
bounties. I am wondering what weapon I'm kind of gonna use here, because we got a quartz mirror blade, so maybe I'll use that. I'm not sure yet.
We could get some feedback from people. What do you guys want to see Corey using to play to?
Yeah, let me know. I don't have chat up at the moment, so.
Will there be classes that only work in co-op, like healers? So we won't have classes that are only useful in co-op, but we will have healing classes and so on. Like the cleric, for example, is a class that we are supporting that obviously will have a lot of kind of like heals and buffs and that kind of thing. I get this question a ton. I don't know why. Like, what's my favorite weapon? I don't, guys, I'm the guy who actually sets up all these weapons. So what always happens to me is that the last weapon that I set up is the one that I like the most. And so it always changes.
I have a favorite weapon. My favorite weapon
What's your favorite weapon?
Summer Sting. It's my favorite weapon.
Great sword.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still very partial to all the ones that I set up for Breach. So
There's lots of fun weapons.
Yes, there's tons. Yes, weapons are tied to classes. So your class basically automatically changes based on which weapon you pick. And we did that specifically so that you don't have these annoying interactions where it's like, hey, I found a really great weapon. Cool, now I have to teleport to Sacrament. Now I have to change my class and then go back to the area that I've already been to and so on, right? So we basically just automated this for you. And it kind of like also makes logical sense, right? Like if you use daggers a lot, obviously you would become better at wielding daggers, right? So it's quite nice the way it worked out.
Did people say what they want to see weapon-wise? Any preferences in the chat?
Yeah, but lots of different things. People are asking about friendly fire. Yes, there is friendly fire. So, I mean, and let's actually discuss that real quick, right? Because the natural response is that people don't like friendly fire, right?
I love friendly
and
fire.
I get that, but Wicked is a precision action RPG.
Yeah,
It's very
Jordan.
Souls-like in its in the way it works, right? So what doesn't work, what really didn't work, and we tried this before without friendly fire. What didn't work for us was that when friendly fire was off, the game basically became a thing where it's just every player would immediately mush into the enemy that was on screen and just wield everything, and AoE blasts off and so on. And we ultimately are making a game where we try to get away finally from that whole zoom gameplay that you see in other
ARPGs,
products,
just
right? We're trying to make something where you have to think, where you have to be tactical and strategical and so on. And the same has to be true with multiplayer, right? Like we want people to communicate with one another. We want people to talk to one another and say, guys, I'm blasting off Armageddon, right? Like get out of the way. And then the whole spell comes down. Everybody has to react to that and so on. What you don't want is that it just becomes a mess, right? Of explosions on screen and so on. And it's just, you know, like you still want it to feel like, you know, hey, your entire group has to work together and has to really take care of one another. Also, there's lots of games out there now that do it, right? And do it well. I think Helldivers, for example, has friendly fire. And I think people liked it there as well.
Again, I think you just make it also like you have it on by default. And you get when people create a realm, they can choose if they want to turn it off.
One-to-one. So obviously we're not crazy, right? Like if you do hit your friendly player, your ally, with a charged claymore or something attack, then no, we're not. You know, we're not draining the same amount. But it still is annoying if you get interrupted by your friend and so on, right? So don't worry too much by friends constantly killing you. But you might get interrupted and that kind of stuff.
It's all going to be about a feeling how it feels, Boar, right?
Okay, let me actually.
Feels good in Helldivers. Does it feel good here? We'll find out.
Diving into. And guys, feel free to give Corey some suggestions.
Invite a friend into.
He's quite hardcore. Corey is the guy who literally plays the game, whatever, 10, 12 hours a day.
In real time.
And who tells me about all the kind of like balance things and so on.
And more in my off time as well.
So he knows Wicked extremely well. Lots of people are saying fists, Corey.
Mm-hmm. We can try that. If I actually get a fist weapon, I'll get one from Alharia.
Realm settings we're still looking into, but we want that. I can promise it for soon, but obviously that's something that I discussed before. That would be very fun if you could set up the realm exactly like you want, especially with co-op and multiplayer and so on. But let me go back to the questions or to the stuff that I wrote up. The other thing that we are changing is the crafting system and the way we went about that. So initially, the system that we introduced was fairly simple, but over time we saw that the RNG is kind of like hurting us there. So basically the way it worked until now is that every now and then a blueprint could drop, right? So we thought, hey, that would be fun for players. So they would play for a long time until they have every weapon craftable and so on. So you would read that blueprint and then you'd know how to craft a weapon. And then you just go to a crafting table. It would list all the weapons or items in general that you can craft. And then you just go ahead and craft it, right? The problem was, well, we have a massive shit ton of items in the game, right? I can actually look it up real quick. So, and I know for when we initially launched Wicked, the weapon number that we had was 100. If I look into our item manager right now, just one second, the numbers that we see is we have 346 weapons there in total.
Ooh.
So it would be quite the RNG issue if you try to get this one weapon with RNG out of over 300, right? So basically what we introduced and what we how we wanted to solve this is by basically introducing the scribe table. So that will also be there for the co-op build already, because we want you guys to try that and tell us kind of what you think. The scribe table works in this way. You will find it right next to Danos now.
Okay.
And it is basically just showing it's another crafting table. It's just basically showing you every weapon that has already been explored on the realm at least once, or found on the realm, right? So every weapon that already at some point existed on the server will be there. And we introduced research papers. Those are just random drops. And now you can use those research papers to actually research those items. So basically, if you wanted to or want to know how to craft some furniture piece or some other item that was really difficult to find before with blueprints and so on, you can literally just force this stuff basically right now by finding research papers. Then you just open up the scribe table. It has everything nicely categorized, so you guys basically see what I see in the editor, and then you can just research everything, right? That also obviously has been designed so that it works hand in hand with our class system, because you might not want to wait for blueprints to drop in RNG if really all you want to do next is, hey, I'm playing the assassin class, I just want to research the next dagger, right? So we made that quite straightforward. Once you researched how an item can be crafted, boom, now you go to any crafting table where that item can be crafted, and you can just craft it. So that makes it a lot easier and way nicer. Let's see.
I thought things were all tradable. Did he just say that differently and I was having a mental moment?
Yes, you will be able to support allies in co-op. We are also showing that during the Wicked Inside. But even right now, you have the Heal Aura Rune. That initially was already... That's something that you can get in the game right now, and it was initially introduced for the multiplayer, right? The reason why it's an aura is because it changes the way heals work, right? Normally, with the current heal, it's just for you. If you play multiplayer and if you're playing with your friends a lot, you might want to swap that utility rune to a heal aura rune and then ask your friends to get closer to you every time you heal, because then they also get something from the heal.
Nice. I do want to build like a white mage. Yeah, I might name all my builds after Final Fantasy jobs.
On itemization, people are asking about unique drops and so on, right? Yes, we are making a lot of changes. I don't want to say too much right now, but we are obviously always trying to improve our itemization to make looting and leveling even more fun and finding unique gear and that kind of thing. There is lots of changes to core systems. Again, Wicked Inside, we will show a lot of that.
When's the Wicked Inside? We want to know.
Let's head back to the questions real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, people have asked about the roadmap and everything. So basically what we are looking at is that obviously, even before Breach and all of the stuff, right? We had worked on Wicked for quite some time. There were always areas that had already been designed. We just didn't get to finish them up. And the thing that we're seeing right now is that people just basically want us to finalize things, get it out there, and get it on consoles, especially. Literally, we are the
Yes.
it becomes almost like a
Let's
meme
bring the console
already,
players
right?
in. It's
But the
time.
thing that we're seeing a lot,
1.0.
we're literally getting just spammed every week with questions of when is the game finally hitting 1.0 and when is the console release? Tons and tons of players just want to play it on PlayStation 5, right? And let's dive into that real quick. So we have a build up and running on PlayStation 5 already.
Yeah.
And it runs well. And I know a lot of players just have consoles at home and don't have a PC yet, right? We're running the early access because we basically want to do the same thing that Larian did. Where hopefully we run the early access, we listen to all of your guys' feedback, we polish the crap out of the game, and then we release it once we know, hey, this is another masterpiece, right? Like we really polished everything, everything feels good. And that then feels like, okay, we should release it now because it's in a good state. That is basically what we're looking at. We want to rush to that as fast as we can, right? Not do a rush job, but basically get to finishing up the game, finishing up the story, putting more content in, and so on, and also introduce all the console players to it, because at this point it does become a little bit crappy that everybody who plays on consoles has already probably played Ori and so on, and still can't join in on Wicked. So that's basically
I need to
a
play
next
Ori.
thing.
I need to find time to play
Steam
that.
machines,
I've never
yes, of
played them.
course. Like Wicked runs on Steam Deck. It runs pretty okay. Funnily enough, it runs at like 35-40 FPS right now on Steam Deck, which is okay. It could be better still, right? But it runs okay, I would say. With lossless scaling and stuff like that, you actually can get it to almost like a nice 60 stable, right? So that's nice. On Steam machines, I'm pretty sure it will just run at 60 or even more by itself, because it just has more juice. People ask about soundtrack release. I will leave that up to Gareth to announce, because Gareth Coca is our composer.
Yeah.
He's very
You and me,
busy
same.
at work on all of the stuff. Like some of the stuff is fucking crazy what we're doing right now. I think once 1.0 hits, you guys will see some of the best storytelling that we ever had in the
Ooh.
game. Some of the best sequences.
It's
that we
so
ever made,
far
and I
so
think,
good. Like I'm
without tooting our own horn
loving
too
it.
much, I think that's a pretty great thing to achieve. And obviously he's writing all of that music right now, but I'll want him to do that. Up with the next thing.
That's fair.
Oh,
I'm
we
sure
wanted to know
I
this,
probably haven't installed.
survival
I've been
this.
playing.
So,
I hadn't played Hollow Knight. I've been playing Hollow Knight. Been playing most of my time
we
has
are
been in
still
Final
the
Fantasy
early
Tactics
access
right now,
period,
and the
we
Dragon
always,
Quest
often get
HD
people who
remaster.
ask, like, hey, should I already join it yet? Should I play it yet? And so on. And obviously, from our point of view, we think, yes, it's absolutely a good time to join early access. So one thing that we wanted to do to encourage players a little bit is to just add more early access rewards.
Ooh.
So that people are more encouraged to kind of like try things out, right? For the early access launch initially, I'll be honest, we just basically added the Serum armor set, and we never really had much there, but we are soon, well, that's the plan at least, going to introduce more items so that it feels like, hey, we are giving something back to the people who supported us right from the get-go.
Excellent
so
news.
everybody who already supported us from the start will be able to get this rewards, and everybody who's basically joined early access until a certain point and so on will also get these rewards. How do people feel about that? Because I'm a little bit worried about all of this FOMO stuff and so on, right? But we see it like just as a thank you to the supporters. Let's see.
Blood's gonna
No, those are straight up rewards that you can get from Randolph. You don't have to craft them. But it looks like people are okay with
Oh, that's a great idea.
throwing some more rewards.
Some kind of a title maybe, and
achievements.
how many
obviously
times
that
our
is
characters got
coming
wiped.
But at 1.0, so not before that. Yes, there will
I
be
hear
more
that
Easter eggs.
they are tradable, the rewards and stuff like that. So like if you didn't want it, you could, and somebody did, like there you go. Trade. Dude, trade is so important in my mind. Hands down.
Cool.
I know people hate
guys,
it.
the
It's
thing
important.
that we are obviously trying to avoid is that we don't want to become the kind of studio that squeezes players, right? I think we have seen a lot of
Yes.
kind of like crappy behavior from AAA studios recently.
Mhm.
We never really sold our game.
What is going on with the app? Let's try. Yeah, we'll do that.
Your Serum armor and any early access reward that you get will always be
What is
like
happening?
assigned to your account, basically, right? So even if you start your full game and so on, you will always be able to claim it.
There's some issue. I wonder if StreamYard is pushing out some updates. Welcome
By the way, I
back.
just wanted to mention one thing. You were speaking about the value of the game and if people should buy it yet. I played this game before I actually started working for Moon, and I played it for 150 hours within 2 months or something. And I still play it on my my time off as well. It's definitely worth it, and that was back then. Now we've like doubled the content or something. And
I think that says a lot if the person who does QA, who has to play the game 10 hours a day, then also plays it in their free time. That's pretty crazy.
People always think like, oh, you'll get bored of games if you work in game development, but nah, not really.
I mean, I'm the same. I just played it with my best friend, right? And it's just so enjoyable. I think with the class system, it'll also be even more interesting because there's just to some degree, there's also like I'm a little bit worried about this thing because the class system does introduce a fill up the bars kind of thing, right? Because ultimately you're being presented with like 26 classes and like have you mastered all 26, right? But I also just to research, right, played Final Fantasy Tactics a lot. By the way, came out recently in a remastered fashion. You guys should all play it. It's one of the best games ever made. And I just enjoy that stuff. I just really like it, and I think that'll add a lot of replayability for players. Let's get into questions that were sent in, actually. There's a lot of other stuff that I have on my list that I would love to bring up and kind of like take temperature on, because they're still like we're in construction mode right now, like we're still throwing stuff in and so on, and polishing and so on. So I would love to know how people react to certain things. But let's actually see. So first question.
Yeah, it's like when I highlight a comment now, it's like definitely a bug.
On Discord. All the questions, by the way, were picked from Discord and they were voted on by users. We just literally did a thing where we just, picked the most voted ones and like listed them up and so on. I'll read up the usernames and the question that they asked and then kind of just answer it. So Chris Dibley asked, I love the beauty of building up Sacrament, but how far are you going to take rebuilding the town? I.e., will we be able to romance other NPCs? How will farming work if it's still coming? And will Sacrament's full completion impact the story in any way? So obviously we want to do a lot more there, right? Like if you played Breach Refined, at some point in Act 2, basically, the Danos project stuff starts to run out, right? Like, and that's literally just because, hey, we don't have the tier 3, 4, 5, 6 items and so on in the game yet. So that'll last a lot longer. And then obviously we want to add a lot more projects and so on. Recently on Discord, people asked me if we still intend to kind of like have Danos projects for Azula Sacra. I'd love to do it. We're kind of like in the state where we have to lock things down and like see, because we want to ship at some point, right? But there's a lot of things planned for rebuilding Sacrament and giving players more choices there and making that really, really cool. I really like the Danos project thing. I know there's always been discussions about the timers and like how long things take and so on. And by the way, that's another thing that we tweaked a little bit. But yes, there's a lot of stuff that we want to do there. The farming, I explained it before. It is pretty simple. It's still coming. It's still very much planned. And basically, what happens at 1.0 is that Sacrament becomes even bigger. A lot of the places that have been locked off for now in Sacrament will not be locked off anymore.
Ooh.
And those places include all the farmhouses. So it's very much like Stardew Valley in that sense, where you just basically buy a house, kind of like more on the outskirts of Sacrament, is where they're usually located. There's one kind of like overhang in the cemetery as well, and so on. But you'll basically be able to purchase farmhouse, and what differentiates the farmhouses from the normal houses is that they have farmlands. So basically plot where you can do your thing. So in the tools we have watering cans, for example, and hose, right? So you need to first plot your land. Then there's Willem the farmer.
So stop my was like, and you got pimps, right? For those hosts.
First have to, like, we have a little NPC quest there where you first have to,
I've got the humor of a middle schooler.
rescue him from the Black Trench, and then he will be in Sacrament, and he will sell some seeds to you and that kind of thing, right? And seeds will basically become random drops. Then you just basically do your Animal Crossing Stardew Valley kind of thing, where you plot your land, put seeds in, make sure that stuff is watered, or hope for a rainy day, which is also nice. And then every time you come back to the game, you're basically seeing your crops have grown and so on. And either you sell it and try to become a rich farmer, right? Or you actually use that those resources that you gained there to, make food or that kind of thing. The next one by Ardam Monov Alexander. By the way, I'm very sorry if I butcher these names, but sometimes they're not easy to read. Ardamonov Alexander asked, will we see snow in Sacrament for Christmas?
No.
So I said that recently. I'd love to see seasons, and I don't mean ARPG seasons, right, necessarily, but actual seasons.
Animal Crossing seasons,
the problem
boys.
that you always have with ARPGs is that we are trying to make every area feel very different, right? So there's this whole Frozen Peak section in the game that is basically snowy at all times and so on, right? And it would be kind of not that cool, right? If you go to any forest in the game, and if it's autumn, well, they all kind of look the same because they all look like autumn forest. But it is a really cool thing that I'd love to see at some point, but it has to be done well. It's not on the table for 1.0, but we'll see.
And thanks
You
guys
also
for the
asked
20
about
likes.
events.
I appreciate y'all.
That is still planned, so I want to do more of that, right? Like I do think, and by the way, that would be cool to check in the chat real quick. How do people feel about events? Because that
I like
also,
events.
Chris Wilson, actually, from X Grinding Gear, just had a really great YouTube video that he released where he talked about dark patterns. And that could potentially fall into that, right? Because usually the way events are done is more for like FOMO purposes.
Oh yeah, if you don't have the FOMO aspect.
And I'm
like if they come back and they build on each other year over year,
I do think events
that's cool, right?
But it could fall a little bit into that. So, and let me just explain what events are. They're just basically like, hey, a certain thing is happening in your Soul Sacra right now. Log in and take part of the event, and you get some exclusive items and that kind of thing. Let's see.
On that note, guys, I'm gonna let him talk. I'm gonna go hop on a call. I'm gonna keep this up.
Cool.
There's you on YouTube who don't or can't access Twitch because of all that stuff. And then also, if my call wraps, I'll see if I can come back and hang out. No promises. So
we just got a ruby, so I'm gonna make this fire, and then we got the burn damage on the chest. So got some synergies.
Sorry, while I'm reading this stuff, you could also just talk about your strategies, right? Like how are you playing? What's your typical strategy regarding enchantments and so on to get OP quickly?
Yeah, so in this current build, plague items are really strong, but you do need to put a lot more effort in to get them. So you kind of want to go towards them if you can, but blues just, they work right out of the box. So every item's good, but I'm going to work towards some plagued items here.
It's hard to capture it, but I would say it's like 50-50 or so on the event stuff. So I'll probably do a separate poll on Twitter because let's see how people feel about it. Next question by this one was sent in by Nocturne. Would you consider implementing a 3D model view at some point, maybe as part of the bestiary? The design for enemies is so good, it would be amazing to be able to zoom in and really see the detail in them. So, we will have the compendium. And what the compendium does and is basically is it's almost an in-game wiki, where you always kind of like we always wanted to have something where you could always check back on, items that have already dropped. Where can I find those? What are they? What was, where are they found? And all of that kind of stuff. Even tutorials, right? Like, hey, if I didn't grasp a certain concept, we always just wanted to have a simple menu where it's like, hey, I can quickly read up on all these tips and tricks and so on. And that can be kind of nice. There's already like if you do have a loading screen, if you do use a whisper, there's always every now and then like we show you some tricks there anyway, right? But it would be nice to kind of like just have a menu where you can read everything, and obviously you could see the enemies there as well. Right now, I think they are 2D representation. We would have to see what that means for our loading times and all of that. If it's 3D, I'd have to discuss that with our tech team. So I don't have the perfect answer for that yet, but it was a pretty good question to bring up the compendium. Let's see. We have next question from Zenith 7301. Any chance in the future for themed housing? A nice little tree trunk mushroom house for druids, a serum themed chamber, temple house themed, temple themed house, Dasha themed house, options for architecture that accommodate different classes for cultural fantasies. Obviously, that came up a lot internally. We don't have that yet, but it would be really cool. We don't have that necessarily planned for 1.0, but let's bring that up as well. The whole 1.0 and kind of like future stuff and so on. So obviously, as I said, we wanna get to consoles and that kind of thing and make sure that console players don't scream at us anymore as quickly as we can and basically finish up the story, give people more content and so on. But that does not mean that we will not do updates anymore, right? And I think that's in kind of like a tradition for ARPGs, right? So when PoE 1 first released, it wasn't the PoE that it was years later, right? And I think that's a good thing. I always like, even back during the Ori days, we always had this whole dread of the one release date where everything had to get in, right? And our designers were always like, at some point we always cracked down and we're like, hey, look, that feature or those levels that you implemented are really cool if you like them. And we have Casca in the Discord still giving a shit about the core-like mines and that we had to cut them, which we actually showed in that trailer once. And that always was really hard on us, right? Because you would literally throw out months and months of work simply to get the game done at a certain point, and you had to cut content and so on to make that work, right? With Wicked, we basically took a different approach. We wanted to craft a game where we could add more content and just go crazy and listen to the community and add more things even after the initial package that we released. Obviously, that package that we released, that we put on consoles, that is the 1.0 release, has to be fucking fantastic. Already has to be, well, live up to the expectations that people have for us. But I think the idea was always marvelous that we could then still go in and squeeze even more fun out of things, because that's ultimately what designers always want to do, right? And that is very much the plan, that we still will keep going and so on. There are things that I've already shown recently, right, that are a little bit wilder, like the survival mode and so on. Those are things we would probably, put after 1.0 release as like really cool updates that give you even more replayability, but don't necessarily have to be right there in the 1.0 release. Next question by Cyro was, is modding support planned or considered? So this came up a lot, or always comes up, right? And right now the answer is basically not really. There are people who are modding Wicked already, right? But it's not easy. We do not have plans that we put editors out there and that kind of thing. Wicked is built on a fairly complex networking system. And we made that decision from the start. So even for the single player, and even for what you played right now, Wicked has always ran on a very sophisticated rollback network code, kind of like network engine, right? And that makes everything a lot more complex. Meaning, when we went from Ori, which was just a single player game basically, to Wicked, everything, even for our programmers and so on, became an order of magnitude more complex simply because it was it was built around a full networking engine. And I think if you just throw that to modders, it would be difficult for them to kind of like grasp that and so on. And modding support isn't something that you usually want to throw in, kind of like what that you can easily throw in after, but we'll see what happens after 1.0, right? If Wicked becomes the huge success that we all hope it will be, well, the sky's the limit, right? Like, we obviously want to keep supporting Wicked for a long time to come. And if all of that support comes from us, then I think that's good. If we at some point see, hey, let's open the floodgates, that could be interesting. Next one. Oh, interesting. That one also was by Arda Monov Alexander. Was, will there be an option to return accidentally sold items to the merchant? And will there be a feature to block items from being sold? So this comes up a ton. Obviously, we have not fixed it yet, even on our current build. But we are... we have looked at this and have discussed kind of like how we want to do it, right? It's not that easy for multiple reasons, but we will look into that because we did get some reports from people that upgraded their items and so on and then accidentally sold it. Oh, Corey, people are saying that you should drop the volume a little bit. It's too high and it's hard to hear our voices.
The game volume, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
A little tad more. Everybody let us know if this is all right.
Let's see.
This is my favorite helmet, by the way. I was so glad when we finally released this.
Yeah, with the bird in the center.
Shout out to Finley.
Yep. Okay, let me bring up some other stuff, some more questions that came up. Let me say this thing, so that people aren't surprised once they get to play the co-op build. So one change that I recently made, and this isn't necessarily final yet, but I wanted to test it, and so it's in that build that you will be able to play, is that I streamlined parry, and I kind of like screwed Corey today with this because, I just got everybody used to the way it works now. And now today he had to play the live build where it was different. So we streamlined parry, and let me explain my reason and my decision behind that. Was that until now we had parry on a separate button. And it was basically the only thing that ever did, right? But to me, parry was always kind of like a function of blocking and so on, right? Like, it basically falls in the same category. So I changed it to, if you tap the block button, it will be a parry now. If you hold the block button, it will still be a block, right? And we did some fairly complex stuff there to make sure that you don't get accidental parries or accidental blocks and so on. But it's now basically streamlined into one button. So I just wanted to kind of mention that and, make sure that, hey, people try it, give us feedback. There is a difference there now that some people, especially the more hardcore folks, might notice, meaning that parry is a tap move and not a on press move anymore. So there's a couple milliseconds milliseconds of difference depending on how you play as a player, right? But just try it out, give us your feedback. Let's see how people feel.
Yeah, it might be a bit weird at the start.
It's basically similar to Sekiro.
You'll get used to it.
Yeah. That's the thing that we got, right? Like, from our internal developers, at first people were like, oh my God, it's so different. Why did we do this, right? But then once people got used to it, they got used to it. and it frees up that button for LT, which we really need for really cool stuff that we have coming up. There's lots of changes on parry, by the way, anyway, because I had my fingers in it, right? And I wanted to kind of like, you know, perfect it a little bit. So yeah, please try it and let's see how we feel. People are asking about bow. Bows are different now. So bows are not offhand items anymore. It's another thing that I want you guys to try, right? We turned them into two-handed items. That means they're now fully supported weapons. So you can make archer builds that are fully supported. Where if you use a bow now, you don't have to hold LB and then have arrow always being assigned to the X button. Now it's literally just you press the X button to fire an arrow, and that's it. So basically, all the archer folks will be, I think, quite happy about that. That also means that you can have now 4 runes on bows and not 3 anymore, where 1 was basically just the default attack and so on. So I think the ranged players will be very happy about that change. Okay, so those 2 things. Let me bring up a big one. So this came from me. It is something that I wanted to talk about because it might strike people as a bit strange. This is not gonna be in the upcoming core build yet. I will turn it off for now because it's not like I didn't get to time to fully polish it yet. But I wanted to bring up a system that I call the call-out system, and basically what that is it basically came from us trying to do cool things with enchantments, right? So even in Breach Refined, you already had enchantments that sometimes said things like, hey, you get extra X if you perform a fatality, right? And to some people it wasn't clear, well, when do I perform a fatality or how? And it's never announced on screen or anything, right? And so I initially just flopped in that thing, right? And was like, okay, look, let's throw in a system that announces that stuff to you. And over time, I kind of like iterated on it and turned it also into a combo system. And then I was like, okay, so this is a combo system now similar to Streets of Rage 4, those kind of things, right? But then I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we could also support some gameplay stuff for that? So then it became a thing where it's like, hey, we do a cool thing where the combo system or the call out system, that's how we call it now, has a timer. And it basically just announces cool things that you did, right? Like, so if you perform a really cool sequence and so on, it announces those things and it rewards you for it, right? It counts up the damage. And then basically does things like, there's going to be enchantments where it's like, hey, the combo rewards turn to like health for something, right? Meaning there's a calculation there where we basically just look at how much damage did you deal, and if you have that particular enchantment, it calculates it down to, oh, you get a health bonus, right? Or you can turn that into focus, or buff, or that kind of thing, right? But we basically just want to introduce something that we think will encourage players to play in really cool ways, and that also helps with multiplayer, right? Where we want people to kind of like have that whole wrestling tag team kind of thing, right? Where it's like, hey, Patrick does a stagger on an enemy and I finish them off with a headshot and so on, right? And that we actually announced that. And I know people have heard me say a lot before that Wicked is basically like the combat system is very close to a fighting game, right? The way we set up our combat system and so on is basically like a fighting game, which is also why I think that our PvP stuff is going to be really cool. And fighting games after kind of like, or with Super Street Fighter 2 and so on, always introduced these combo systems that just announced cool stuff and so on and gave you that little extra bonus, or that little extra, juice when you perform cool things, right? And that's basically where all of that came from. So I just want, like, obviously that does mean there is more stuff on screen. And that's the thing that even internally, our developers were a little bit like, oh, but Wicked is quite a beautiful game. Do we want to really risk having more UI on screen and so on? But that's something that I really want people to try out because it does add more juice. And there is something nice about, getting that nice endorphin rush of like having performed really cool actions and then finished off that whole combo with a fatality and feeling like super accomplished from that. I know games like Souls and so on don't do it, right? But I don't think we should get stuck on what other games do or don't do. I think we should just try to always squeeze the maximum amount of fun out of everything. So let's see how people react to that.
I can see the community having like competitions for who can get the highest damage on the meter as well. Stuff
Yes,
like
exactly, right? Yep. Yeah, it's also to point out things like riposts and so on, or a rune ripost, or those kind of things, right? Arena shooters did a similar thing in a very effective way, right? Where it was just double kill and headshot and that kind of thing. And it just, if they wouldn't have had that, I think there would have been a little bit less true. Obviously, we don't try to not be as garish as that, because that was very 90s. And yes, it has to be subtle, of course. It can't be ultra combo. There are people that are asking about loot and chest placements and so on. There's lots of changes that we have planned, but I would keep that for later, so that we have a more kind of a concise pitch.
We'll see it soon enough.
I think people are just marveling at Corey's.
Or are people people give me some compliments, are they?
Well, they like your helmet, so
well, that's all I need, to be honest. It's my favorite helmet as well.
Somebody who's taunting you about increasing difficulty.
I mean, we can increase difficulty if you want to. It was just kind of
let people vote.
Yeah.
Should we increase difficulty? Let's see. Because people are always saying that Wicked is a really difficult game. How do you feel about that, Corey?
It can be. It's like you can almost pick your own difficulty, a little bit like Elden Ring in a way. Like you'll see me pre-buff before bosses, but some people, just don't want to do that. It's like the Skyrim thing where people hoard their resources, right? But
okay, everybody says increase difficulty.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead, do it.
Okay, I guess I'll kill this guy and then we'll do it.
Pico in chat is saying Wicked is easy now with the gracious XP. I agree. We did tweak the XP curves quite a bit. So again, in the upcoming builds, please let us know, right? And mainly, we introduced the curve basically, right? Because I felt like, I played many times through now with many characters, and I always felt like there isn't enough of a difference between me leveling from something like level 23 to level 24, to how much time it took from like going from level 10 to 11 or something, right? And I do think as we increase, like obviously there should be quite a difference there, so that it feels more rewarding every time you get a level, right? And it really feels like, yeah, that was an accomplishment, without making it feel too grindy, obviously.
All right, let's increase this difficulty.
Yep, do it.
More XP for me.
There's people asking if we have more abilities on bosses and so on. On harder difficulties, we are already introducing new behaviors and so on based on multiplayer. Obviously, we could easily flip that switch, right, and say, yeah, in single player, if you play hard, let's just let the enemies also do that. But for now, I just want to see kind of like, how do people feel about that, right? Like once you play even just Warwick, right? Like if you play with 3-4 players and so on, you will suddenly see bosses perform things that they didn't do before. so that they can smartly react to other players and, surprise you again. So we'll see. Let me go over the list again. Okay, there's another big one that I wanted to bring up to see how everybody feels about that. This is from a discussion that we literally just had internally in our systems calls, because internally I had like 4 or 5 bugs open or so, where our internal developers complained about our death mechanics not being punishing enough. And obviously, some people already feel like Wicked is really punishing and difficult. But then we also oftentimes hear this, right? That it's just, hey, Wicked, dying in Wicked isn't really all that meaningful. And let me explain all of that and how that came to be, or what our thinking behind it, the current implementation was. So what you have right now is basically a delayed punishment system. We initially didn't want to punish you immediately and like take a huge chunk out of your thing, right? Every time you died. So the thing we did is, well, we introduced the durability system, meaning that every time you die, your items take some durability damage, right? And what that we hoped would do was that the game would tell you, hey, if you beat your head against the wall for, let's say, 10 times in a row or something, that the game kind of like softly tries to steer you away from things because your gear constantly breaks, right? And you constantly have to run back to Sacrament and repair stuff, right? So it's not an instant punishment, it's a delayed punishment. But I don't know if people really grasp that, and if they think that actually made sense, right? So the thing that we had been discussing is, well, what are other things, or how could we do it in other ways? And one of the things that came up, obviously, that always comes up when we discuss those kind of things, is corpse runs. So we did initially, before we made that change with introducing durability and so on, have a system where it was basically a corpse run, because we looked at, Ultima Online and Diablo and those kind of things, and, basically took inspiration from there. And so we have a system that is fully implemented and ready to go, where every time you die in the last safe position that you are at, we basically dropped a bag, right? And that has all the resources and so on that you grabbed during this run. Meaning your equipment, or what you currently have equipped on your character, that would not change. And you're not losing that. You're not losing your food or your quick items or that kind of thing. So that, yes, you can make it back to the area that, that you were in before. But, it's a corpse run mechanic. And I would love to know from people how they feel about corpse runs, because there is good stuff about it, but at the same time, they're also oftentimes not that liked. Let's see.
I think this is going to be one of the more controversial topics.
Yeah,
It's going to be really, really split.
but that's exactly why I like having that discussion, right? Because
those are the discussions you have to have.
I mean, I'll be honest, from a developer's perspective, I kind of like the corpse run thing, and games like Hollow Knight and Silksong just now did it and so on, right? Simply because from a, there is something nice about that moment when you die, that you're like, oh, but I can't quit now. I have to first get my stuff back. And then when you get your stuff back, you're already like, oh, but now I'm back again, right? And I want to, go here now and do that and so on, that kind of thing. But there's lots of people in the chat saying they don't like corpse runs. Lots of no, thank you. No, 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 no. So does that mean you guys are okay with the current system, where it's just we are, punishing you through time and every now and then cost, instead of doing the corpse run thing? At least Hana is saying corpse run is good. I like it in classic WoW too. But then lots of other people are saying they don't like it.
And just to clear up, by corpse run, you mean something happens and you need to recover something. It's not just you walking back
Yes.
to where you died.
Yes, exactly. Like basically your current stuff drops and then you want to recover it. Or you say, well, damn it, I didn't get that much cool stuff anyway. I'll just leave it be.
Make the world your weapon.
This dog is in the way of Eleanor. He really wants to be pet.
Well, that's what dogs do.
Great.
Guys, I'll go over more questions. So, please stop. The next one was from, oh, Jesus Christ. Rodrigo Kiwi asked, since we will no longer have stat distribution, how do you plan balancing equipment weight? How will players be able to switch between fat roll, medium roll, and dodge? So that's a good one. That's something that we are still discussing. So obviously with the whole class system or job system change that is coming in, this has been a topic of discussion. So, and we are not final on this yet. Like we created these traits where it's just, hey, you know, like your equipment load goes up, that value just goes up, right? That kind of thing. We could also just give it to you straight, right? That it's just, hey, if you want this trait, it's expensive, but then you get, you know, quick step and so on, but it has other, it comes with other issues, right? Like if you pick that, that kind of thing. That's still open for discussion. So we're still, like, this is one of the things that we're still finalizing there. Would be good to get feedback on that once people actually try that system. Next one from L4RN, Lauren. Would it be possible to give the difficulty levels more weight? For example, trophies from bosses in hardcore mode, or even better, equipment that only drops in hard or hardcore mode. It should feel more rewarding to play at a higher difficulty. Corey, how do you feel about that?
I do like it in other games where you get like unique stuff in hard modes. It means that I really want to play the hard mode. I usually do anyway, but it just gives it that extra, like, oh, I play in hard mode and I just get this extra thing that I wouldn't have got, because you can play normal mode and then you can also play hard mode after, and then you can experience it almost again but in a different way. So it's hard though in every game because you have to be careful of the power creep, right? Stuff like that. If you get trophies, is it just going to be vanity, or is it going to give you something?
I think with achievements, we're definitely going to do that, right? There are certain achievements you can only get if you don't play on easy, at least, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or certain achievements that you can only get if you actually finish, you know, or do stuff on hard mode. And well, the other thing that we never really quite liked, right, was the XP change in hard mode. So we'll definitely do something there to look at that, because it kind of like creates a weird dissonance right now where you're playing hard mode, and like the initial thinking was that, hey, we wanted the game to kind of like reward you a bit, but I think XP wasn't really the right dial to use there.
Can always chop and change things as we go until 1.0 at least.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm worried about. If you actually change the loot on hard mode, right, then everybody will be compelled to play in hard mode, especially if you get some really cool items only on hard, right? And then it's almost like, well, there is no difficulty mode, right? Because everybody then has to play hard mode, or really wants to.
And there becomes a market to trade for the hard mode items.
Regarding console releases, I already said before, we have built up and running on PlayStation 5. But obviously that is being, you know, like we only do that at 1.0, and we will have to wait until we have more concrete info on that. Jesus Christ, that Artem of Alexander guy had a lot of questions put in that got a ton of votes. So here's the next one. Will there be new enchantments and runes in co-op that are designed for team play, enemy aggro, mass health regeneration, and resurrection? So, there's a lot of stuff that changed there. I would want Timofey, our systems designer guy who basically takes care of this stuff, to discuss these things. I'm not up to date on the very latest, but he's making changes all the time to enchantments and to that kind of thing. So, and there's lots of things that have changed. I will have to say, hey, watch the Wicked Inside. We're breaking everything down in detail there. So
I won't
there's
spoil
that.
anything, but I would just say there's
Yep.
there's some stuff related. Let's say
Yeah. So the next one, Lev N. Will legendary unique weapons be reworked as it stands? Only a handful of them are better than cursed weapons. Um, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Our thinking with uniques is that, and I don't think they're in a perfect spot yet. So yes, I do think we'll rework them some more. But the thinking behind it all is that there shouldn't be one rarity that is automatically better than another. Um, Meaning that, hey, if you want to play with magical gear, right, with all blues and so on, that should be a viable strategy. If you want to play with purple, plagued gear, that should be a viable strategy if you are willing to kind of like take the downsides. And then the unique should introduce whole different ways to play, right? And that's where I think we still have work to do, because we need to introduce some, mechanics that we always wanted to get in. That's not quite there yet. So there's definitely some work that we will do on that. There's also new rings and that kind of stuff, but yeah. Next question was by Exhorn. How will the equipment and dodge systems work with the new classes? I kind of explained it already. So that is still being discussed. Would love to hear more information or from people, but that is still like we're still testing and tweaking that stuff ourselves. Omega Cybers, will enemy life scale with player count on the co-op server? Slightly. Again, I kind of like explained it a little bit at the start, but the fear or the issue with co-op that you usually have is that a lot of other games just basically do the cheap procedural shit, right? Meaning, hey, if two players, then enemies have double health, right? And then three players, oh my god, now they have 300% health or something. And we didn't want to do that because ultimately what happens if you just do that, right? And that's also how a Diablo gets to crazy amount of difficulty levels and so on. But what usually happens with that is that you turn enemies into bullet sponges, right? And there is something to be said about moment to moment gameplay and like time to kill and that kind of thing, right? Where it's still always at every point, challenge needs to feel juicy and satisfying and shouldn't just feel like, well, like I just have to repeat basic actions again and again, and I'm kind of like just cheesing the system at this point because I already know how these enemies work and so on, and it just becomes a battle of attrition, that kind of thing, right? So what we did was really like, apply the same quality standard that we put into single player into multiplayer as well, meaning we kind of have to design levels multiple times, right? Meaning that if we design something like Mariner's Keep, we design it and then we make sure it works great in single player, and then also when two players play, and then also when three players play, and then also when four players play, and all the enemy spawners are different and so on, and everything gets placed. And then another thing is with our life system, we have multiple enemy spawners, right? We have multiple states. So one time the Mariner's Keep might be taken over by the 10th, and the other time it's taken over by the Risen or by plagued enemies and so on, right? And so we went through that literally every single time. It's a horrendous amount of work, but this is the only way you can guarantee that it doesn't feel like just scaled up shit, right? Like just procedural systems that just aren't necessarily fun, right? Ultimately, that needs to be in the hands of a level designer where they can say, you know what would be really fun if when four players play, some crazy monster shoots out of that little secret passage over there, right? That wouldn't happen with three players or two players or that kind of thing. So that's how we tackled it. Vampire asked, will there be companions in the game, like a human companion or maybe a pet that can fight on your side? Also, maybe there will be any pet that's willing to wait for you in your house. That is not planned right now, and for quite a few reasons. Because, and one of them that gives me nightmares when I hear this is just the complexity of our level designs, right? Like these companions would have to be really clever. And if you played any of these games that were based on AI, right, like even ones that are really good, usually their AI at some point really craps out, right? Like we played Bioshock Infinite or The Last Guardian or something, right? And like it often becomes ridiculous where it's like I could already see playing through Nameless past trying to rescue Finley, and like my AI companion tries to make a jump and falls to the death and so on. So it's not planned right now.
Also,
And
to be
regarding
completely,
pets, that comes up a
sorry.
ton.
I was going to say, to
Yeah,
be
go ahead.
completely honest with companions, um, in games, I really hate companions. Like, you know how D4, D3 had their companions and stuff, and they're basically mandatory in a way because they just buff you. So it would have to be, for me personally, what I would like is it would have to be only vanity, or they'd have to like maybe they'd pick up gold or something. But yeah, it's like a really big turn off for me in games when I have somebody there with me. I hate minions in games, stuff like this. That's just the type of player I am, though. So yeah, there's that as well.
I think you're not alone there, right? Like there's a lot of these quests usually where it's like, hey, guide this AI companion from point A to point B, and undoubtedly every single time it becomes a like, oh my god, why are these enemies or these allies so stupid, and
Yeah.
that kind of thing,
I
right?
just want to play my game.
It's yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just always have to be really careful with this stuff. Well, the necromancer thing is a different discussion, right? Like it's an ARPG we're talking about, so yeah, we'll see. Let's go next one. Boom. Next question came from multiple. Will there be duels, 1v1 in co-op? I know everybody immediately wants that. It's not in right now. Obviously, guys, our combat system is all kind of like fighting game, right? So it is going to happen at some point. It's not there yet. I know I would love to have it even internally. Like one of our guys, Sergey, just made a video where it's like, hey, like they beat the crap out of each other even in co-op, right? But it's not officially supported yet. So it will not be in that build that everybody will get to play. But I know there's a lot of demand there. So, take that for what it's worth. Next one by a name that I will not be able to pronounce. Believe Cyreno 06195 asked, will there be improvements in character customization like hair, tattoo, scars? Yes, obviously. Like there's still stuff planned, but that's more on the 1.0 side, right? For now, it's not super high on our priority list. We first want to really finish everything, right? And then add more little customization options and so on. But yes, it is planned. Next one, Obitaru asked, why have content updates been slower? Because multiplayer is really fucking hard. That's the honest truth. It's like there was just a lot of stuff, especially if you do an RPG with 4 players. It's horrendously difficult, especially the way we did it, right? Where it's not just systemic and procedural stuff and so on, but basically the game has to be designed 4 times for that. And then you find all these edge cases, right? You're also sharing a realm together, right? So there's a lot of these edge cases and quests and so on, right? Where it's like, oh, but here's a state change. What if the player is in this position, but another player is already here and so on? How do we handle that and so on? So we just had to take some time to kind of like look at everything and make sure that we can land multiplayer in a way that hopefully does not blow up. And we're trying to be extremely careful. Obviously, there were some people that were concerned with breach, right? Because we released breach in a state where the balancing was a little bit off, and we got so much negative feedback. So we just basically tried to kind of like take a step back and say, guys, the next thing that we release, like we'll probably have to curate it all. We'll do PTRs and so on before we make it public, because even though the game is in early access, I don't know if gamers understand sometimes what early access was supposed to mean, right? So we're just trying to make sure that we get something out to you folks that is polished, and that just took some time, especially given multiplayer. I think once multiplayer is out, you will see more rapid releases from us again. hot fixes and that kind of thing, right? But landing multiplayer, I think we have to be very careful. None of us want an Era 37 kind of thing happen. So that's why we're very, very careful with things right now. Then Silverblade 56 asks, any plans on making time of day and game affect gameplay more? Yes. Day, night, and weather seem only cosmetic at the moment. Yes, so absolutely. That is something that I always wanted to. We obviously always wanted to do. It is like the reason why we put it in is because it's already nice, even if it's a cosmetic thing, right? That at least like you get a visual difference and so on. But I do think it would be very nice to kind of like support that a lot more. So yeah, you will see more of that in the future. There was a really interesting thing that I did right after Breach came out, and we had it in a good state, where I tried that survival mode and kind of like put things in that I think already made it more interesting. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Dragonars asked, how will story progression work in co-op? Can a friend progress the story while I'm away and prevent me from experiencing it myself? That will be the thing that will be kind of controversial. And the answer is absolutely yes. But you are playing with people that are not random strangers. In order to play multiplayer in Wicked with other people, you have to specifically invite them basically from your friends list, right? On your PS5 friends list or Steam or whatever. And the way we want people to play, or what we want people to like, what we want to give them is basically just, that feeling of like, look, we give you the tools, and what you make out of it is up to you. Meaning that you might not want to invite a player where hey, they're just not gonna play with any group dynamics. They're just gonna not trade with others, and ruin your game and so on. And that's the other thing, like, that I've recently kind of discussed on our Discord forums as well. I'm a little bit worried that generation of people that is now like 20 years old, their first console was the PlayStation 3. They never really grew up with kind of like the earlier days of how online worked and so on, right? So to them, like, what usually used to happen in the past was that that you didn't just go into a game, hit online play, and boom, you're on a server with tons of randoms, right? Like in the stone ages of the internet and so on, what used to happen is that you used to hang out on some IRC channel, and somebody would post a server, and then everybody would jump on there, but you would play with people that you actually knew a lot of times. And there was something nice about that, right? There was something nice about the old days of couch co-op, like playing games like Mario Kart and Bomberman and Worms and so on together on a couch, and everybody screamed at each other and so on. There was just an inherent fun to that. Then what happened was that, well, we made it easier and easier, but in some ways, I think we took away the humanity out of that stuff, because we suddenly only played with randos, right? And then with games like Fortnite, and now a lot of games do that, right? They even fake bots, right? Where you don't even know if like that kill that you just did, right? Like, was an actual human, or if it was just a random bot, right? And so I think that takes a lot of the satisfaction out of it, right? It was like, I always used to play games with my best friend, like in the split screen and so on, with my best friend and with my two brothers. And it was just always hilarious and so much fun, good to see their expression, right? When I blew them up in Halo or that kind of thing. And that I didn't have the exact same experience when it then came to online play, right? Where it's like, yeah, cool, I can play multiplayer at all times, through with anybody in the world and that kind of thing, right? But it never really felt that satisfying to me. So with Wicked, what we are pushing is, you should play or see the game almost like a D&D campaign, right? Invite people that you consciously want to play with over a continued period of time, right? Don't just invite completely random people that are only quickly joining your realm and then they're gone, right? Simply because we give you a lot of power over the realm. Those players could buy houses in the game. They could really make changes on the realm. They could buy stuff from the vendors. They could completely play in a way that is not conducive to team play or a party feel at all. And that might ruin your experience a bit, right? So it's very much designed in a way where you're supposed to invite friends and family and people that you want to play with continuously over a longer period of time and so on, right? And yeah, so that will be possible, but then, it's up to players to kind of like figure out, like, hey, let's not screw each other over, that kind of thing. Let's just see how people react to that real quick. Offline mode is always going to be supported, guys. Like, you can always play offline. You can always play in single player. We'll obviously never take that away. That would be crazy. And if somebody doesn't behave, you can also vote to kick them. So there's always that. See what people are saying. Somebody's saying this Corey guy is very handsome.
Must be.
There you go.
I did tell my mother that I was streaming, so it's probably
Nice.
oh yeah.
In that sense, like, let's discuss that multiplayer thing, right? Like, we are trying to do something very different than what's been done before with ARPGs, where normally it was just, hey, temporarily invite people to your save file, right? That was the case with almost all ARPGs for a good 15, 20 years or so, right? Then with MMORPGs, it was always different, right? But then in MMORPGs, you have the whole theme park ride, right? Where it's just, hey, cool, one person kills Deathring or Arthas or whatever, right? And it's like, cool, but like everybody does that on the realm. There was never a way to kind of like really stand out. And there was like, I really wanted to always have that kind of experience that even Blizzard North talked about, right? With the BattleNet towns and that kind of thing. I think they had a lot of ideas that they never really got to realize because they get shit canned after some time. And I always thought it's fascinating to kind of like really start to realize those ideas. But that also means players have to actively want to work together, right? And actually play like a real RPG party, right? And actually look at, hey, my friend is playing, like, what classes are we playing, right? Somebody is playing the archer, so I'll do warrior, and then the other guy comes in with cleric so they can heal us, right? And so on. We want those kind of interactions. We want the interactions to be meaningful. We just put out this dev blog that we got some shit for because we kind of like wrote about this in a somewhat flowery language, right? But we said, hey, we want this stuff to be meaningful. And to some degree, I think people will only be able to understand this once they actually get their hands on it and really play it and really understand that, hey, you're playing Wicked now in a different way where you're invested into your realm, and it creates different group dynamic if you're all sharing the same world. If it's not anymore just, hey, Corey, want to play? Yeah, cool, drop on my save game, and then he drops out. Or you do the old Dark Souls thing of like, hey, want to play together? Yeah, but that doesn't quite work because I can only join you in a boss battle or that kind of thing, right? So we're trying to create something very new there, and I'm sure we'll get a bunch of shit, and I'm sure we'll get some stuff not right, but please just tell us, right? And we'll fix it. But I'd much rather try to do something new and innovative and push the status quo forward than just to have the same exact multiplayer still, that old host and guest model, or some like, hey, let's stream tons of players into your world, and now 30 players and 15 bots shoot at some enemy, and I don't have meaningful interaction with them, and I still feel lonely playing with 50 people in the room. So that's the idea.
I'm also excited, by the way, for when I play with friends, right? And we all like we'll play through like normally at first, but I'm really looking forward to playing separately as well. And then we all like do our own things completely. Like, we all have our own house, we all just play in the same world as well. I think that'll be pretty cool
Yeah.
to see what happens there.
Well, the other thing we should say is that right now our characters are not realm bound, right? So in the Wicked Inside, we're actually describing the scenarios that happen, right? And like, so what could easily happen is that, hey, you guys play or start separately, right? And then you talk to your cousin and he wants to join in and he joins with a level 12 character already and so on, right? But now you are all playing on the same realm, you're building something together. That's the kind of feeling that we want to create and maintain, right? That it really feels like, hey, we'll give you something that hopefully you will start to feel really invested in. Jackal asks if the realm player is always constantly synced to the server. So yes, but the latency issues are surprisingly not really there. So obviously we'll have to see how it works for everybody, but we're using an extremely modern network engine. And so a lot of the issues that you typically see in games where, characters are warping around, like I have this in Dark Souls. This happened to me in every single Dark Souls in the past 16 years, right? Where it's just, hey, you play PvP and characters warp around and suddenly they're behind you and backstab you and so on. That should not happen here, but we'll see, right? Like that's exactly why we run these tests. Let's see kind of like how people respond to what multiplayer feels like. But hopefully we made the right bets, and people will see how pretty great it is. Crucible in co-op, yes, absolutely, that's supported, right? So yes, it is pretty crazy that you have the full roguelite thing, and that will be multiplayer, but that's how it always was designed, right? We always wanted to deliver that. And same thing with farming game, right? Like once we introduce the farming mechanic, suddenly you have a multiplayer farming game, which is also pretty nuts. But that's the nice thing. That's what I always loved about Wicked, that we almost saw it as a platform where we just throw a lot of stuff in and mold it and then introduce new elements and can keep perfecting, right? And that's why I'm also saying, well, even after 1.0, obviously we'll keep supporting it and add new content and go crazy and so on, simply because we think there's so much potential still left. And ultimately we took on this challenge to kind of like create this forever game. That's what we're after. Let's go through more questions that were sent in so we can do that. Guys, the stream was meant to last from 7 to 9. Now it's already 8:52. So we'll do a bunch more. And let's see. We stopped at farming stuff. We already talked about this. There will be a new system that we're introducing to make items deeper, called facets. Again, we'll have more info on that during the Wicked Inside. But obviously, we're constantly working on itemization and trying to make that deeper and more interesting and so on. Then Lavish Slayer asked, will you guys add more weapons like flail, for example? We'll have to see. Right now, we're already supporting 26 classes. So obviously, every single archetype comes with a ton of cost and so on, right? And we want to first basically nail the stuff that we already have. Flails right now, like there's a folder in it and a couple models, but I really don't have any stuff for it planned yet. For 1.0, so we'd have to see maybe in the future. Then Hatcher asked, are there any other PvP modes planned beside the arena? Perhaps team battles for capturing points or world invasions? Well, right now, no. We only plan for PvP stuff, right? Like, so the arena. But, I mean, obviously, that's what I was talking about, right? Like, that kind of stuff would be interesting. For example, with the survival mode stuff that I talked about, right? The interesting thing is that if we would throw a mode like that in, you'd immediately have a survival mode or a survival game that has incredibly good combat, right? And really good enemy behaviors and so on. So I think there's just super crazy untapped potential there, but we'll have to see. Then Imitora asks, since co-op will share a common persistent realm, will that require one player to host a server for the realm to exist on? Or is Moon providing hosting for realms so everybody can visit them when they want without the host? Yes, that's exactly how it works. You do not need a host. So you can literally just share your realm. go offline, go on a vacation, right? Whatever, and everybody else who you invited to the realm can still hop on and do their thing. This is very similar to creating a private realm in games like Minecraft and so on, but it's free. You completely will not charge anything for it, and we make it simple. And that's the whole thing, right? Like I think that's the thing that I don't think people really grasp yet, because setting up a private server is usually a huge pain in the butt. But in Wicked, you press one button and suddenly you have your almost like a Minecraft realm, but you're not paying for it.
As many as you want as well, I guess.
Yeah, well, we might put a limit on that, right?
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
people
well.
don't go crazy on us. But yeah, like for all intents and purposes, you can go nuts. But I think that is the big change that people like. It will take some time for people to understand that, but I think once you grasp the concept and that you can create worlds that you suddenly share with others, and that are little gardens that you can build, right? I think that's exactly what I always wanted for a long time, and finally we get to be able to build it. Omega Cybers asks, will the class update update alongside the co-op update? No, we are still tweaking the co-op stuff quite heavily. There's still a lot of runes stuff that I have to do for the classes. So no, time-wise, that does not pan out that way. Jorlex asked, will we ever be able to sleep in beds to possibly skip through times of the day? That is coming up quite a bit, but that is not planned right now. Because that would ruin a lot of stuff with like the real-time systems that we have and so on. But keep giving us feedback, right? Like if we see that, well, people really, want us to change that, then maybe. Spam asked, how many, which of the areas shown in the map you shared will be included in the full release of the game? Well, quite a bit. The idea was always that for 1.0 and beyond, right, like and expansions that we have planned and so on, we want all of Isola Sacra in there, right? Like so, before we launch, the big, huge second part of Wicked and so on, we want all of Isola Sacra to be there. So I would say it's hard for me to kind of like say something that makes sense to people because you don't know what the areas are, but basically it's similar to what you saw with No Rest for the Wicked early launch and then the Breach update, right? So there will still be a huge chunk of content that we're releasing once 1.0 hits. Then Noah Ninja asked, are there plans to implement target farming like in other ARPGs, where unique enemies or events spawn in specific locations that can be farmed for special equipment? To some degree, we already have that. Yes, we will do more of that. Well, also, it's going to be interesting how people react to the scribe table now, because it also brings crafting into the mix in a very interesting way. Then Golden Boy asked, will the game get more pure-blooded bosses, as in not ravaged by the pestilence? We'll see. I'm not going to spoil any story stuff and so on. There's no way. We have so much really cool stuff planned and coming up. There's no way I'm going to spoil any of that.
You mentioned the scribe table. Did you want to talk about that at all here, or did you want to wait?
I did already. You're probably deep in the game, right? But I did talk about the scribe table. And obviously, we're also showing that during the Wicked Insight and explaining it. So it'll be interesting to see kind of like how people react to our crafting changes. As the Rilnir asks, Rilnir, RLINR asks, as the game progresses, will the level cap of the game gradually increase? As it stands, my favorite parts of the game are finding new weapons and growing strong. I hope Asarius will go beyond level 30. Of course, we do the 30 cap, right? Because, well, it's early access right now. As we introduce more areas and so on, obviously also the level cap will go up, and new tiers of items will be introduced, all of that. Right now we're capping everything at level 30, meaning that tier 3 items only go to tier 3, but yeah, before we've been hard at work at all the other stuff. Two Tricks asked, procedural generated levels are a staple of ARPG since its creation in Diablo. Yes. We know your map design skills are next level and you're proud of your handmade maps, but are you completely set on not including procedural generated maps at all? For now, yes. Wow, that was weird. For now, yes, we do not have procedural generation planned, simply because there are no procedural systems out there that actually create good level designs. And I think you see that right now with all these open world games, where if you want those sections to actually be fun, well, the developers and designers actually have to go in there and make it fun. And the games that fully rely on procedural systems never really have level design, right? My hope is that at some point AI can help with this stuff, right? But as it stands, it can't. It's really bad at this stuff, similar to how it's really bad at like writing story or any of this stuff. And yeah, so it's not planned right now. Maybe at some point we will, take a stab at that for retention purposes and so on. But for 1.0 or in the short term, it's not planned. The technology just really does not exist. And the whole thing with like what a lot of people are doing now with like letting AI do the first pass and then having to do a lot of cleanup usually results in it's more work to do it that way than just doing it from scratch. So not planned right now. At the same time, we always have things like our life system, right? Where even though you are playing in a science space, the content that is inside that space, we are changing dramatically so that you should have hopefully a new experience and this, improvements they're going to make to the life system and so on, and more quests and so on. So hopefully that should already satisfy people for now. Then Steve7301 asked, you mentioned the video of Human Studios Stellar team. Your writers are powerhouse. What's the story team? What's the writing process like? Conversations feel so organic and in place with the world. Well, I'm sure our story team will be very happy to hear that. I would love Jeremy, Teal, and Nick and so on. Our story folks like do a little behind the scenes video at some point, right? There's constant discussions and debates on where our character should go, how the story unfolds, what we have planned. Obviously, I think one good thing that we did for Wicked was that we let it all simmer for a long time so that we could debate all of it, and we basically wrote the book before we even started production on the game. And now it's really just exploiting all of that and making that work. And in many ways, what we did so far was because it's a new IP, we had to spend a lot of time introducing these characters and introducing the premise, right? And usually with a lot of games, or a lot of art in general, right? You get into the really interesting bits, kind of like in Act 2 and Act 3 and so on, where you actually see how things unfold and, how all the bits and pieces come together and how complex it becomes and so on. And that's certainly going to be true for Wicked as well. I'm really excited for some of the stuff and seeing how people will react to that again. We always had that on Ori as well, where, I mean, I don't want to spoil Ori either, right? But there was a moment in Wisps where we all were wondering, man, if people get to this point, how will they react, right? And will that actually play the way we hope, and so on. And we're now getting to similar things in Wicked, so that is really exciting. Then Sefina82 asks, is there any DLC planned after 1.0? Yes. So our goal was always, we do the early access. Just no bullshit, right? We do the early access, we give you a pretty good price on it, and we want to hear your feedback and all of that. Everybody who plays early access gets it at a lower cost. And then once we release 1.0, we'll up the cost a bit. And in order to support the studio, we thought the fairest thing was not doing it through microtransactions, through selling you fucking horse skins or that kind of thing, but through just saying, guys, we worked our butts off. We introduced more content and really cool stuff, and then just basically release an expansion, right? And that's how we finance things. That is still the plan. That's what we're doing. Then Naruto asked, will there be a physical edition and maybe a collector's edition? Yes, but I'm not going to say anything about that right now. You will see in time. And then the last one that I had was from Sherrod Poibu. Will more bomb rune opportunities be added, such as proximity mines or explosive threats? So obviously, that stuff is super fucking fun, right? So I'm sitting on a lot of runes. I already said many times that there's a difficult balance for me to do that, right? Where it's like I have to make sure that even the tier 1 runes or the tier 2 runes don't become useless once you get the tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 runes and so on, right? So it's almost like a fighting game, right? Where Hadoken or Light Hadoken doesn't become useless only, after you learn, maybe a stupid example, right? But if you know how to do the kind of like whirlwind kick or so, right? But that's kind of like how we approach it, that, you in tier 3, tier 4 and so on, oftentimes you will find more complex runes in there that you might not want to blast off quickly and so on, that kind of thing, or that require more precision and so on. So that's what we're doing there. And like adding more variety to stuff is always good. So having things like little proximity mines and so on, some of that already exists, but adding more things like that is always fun. And we want to have a lot of really cool mechanics in there. Okay, we're already a little bit over. Is the stream actually still running?
Yeah, should be at least.
Okay, very good, because I just had a panic attack that I was just
talk to yourself. Yeah. 100%.
There's some keys that we're giving out. So we still want to announce the winners. And there's another thing that we want to bring up. So obviously, lots of you have asked about the co-op launch timeline. There will be the PTR closed beta basically, and the more open beta that is going to happen very soon. The actual launch is in early 2026. So take that for what it's worth. Again, if you thought it's earlier, I'm sorry, right? But we are trying to make sure we land this plane as smoothly as we can. So bear with us, right? Like launching multiplayer is always hard. We want to do it the right way. With co-op, there's also going to be another 30% sale. This, I think in the winter Steam sale, when we do the No Rest for the Wicked Inside, you're going to see everything that we have planned for multiplayer, and there's going to be a sale there. So it's a pretty perfect time to buy Wicked if you haven't yet. And by the way, the game's price is going to release at 1.0. So, like that early rebate is going to run out at some point. Then the winners for the keys, they all go to me. Weirdly. No, I'm just kidding. So obvious, let's read them out. So first one was Kiara87. Second key goes to Renee. We should have a little cool thing on the screen. We should do that for next time. Third one, Caitlin with paint. Yes, a nice little graphic. Fourth one goes to Jackal. Fifth one goes to Charlex. Sixth one goes to Dynamo. Then next one goes to Tana. Next one goes to It's Slam Dunkly. Then to Vichan and Shikia Kaleum.
Probably close enough.
There you go. All these people get full keys, we just enjoy Wicked, right? Like it's in a pretty cool state, and we'll be in an even cooler state pretty soon. Before we wrap today, let's see. Do people still have anything, questions?
All right.
Let's see.
Congrats to the winners.
Wild. Hopefully you guys been okay.
You're giving it to a friend for multiplayer.
I know he's talked briefly here about the Necromancer, so hopefully that was able to answer your question.
Sometimes there's the question about realm support and how long can we guarantee that and so on. Well, at some point, if we really kick dust, right? Like we would do something, we would do bright by player. So I don't think people have to worry about that. There's some questions about catch-up mechanics, but I mean, people get to play it pretty soon, so they will see how it'll work. I hope you guys enjoyed Corey and Corey's play time here. It's very nerve-wracking to play in front of whatever we have now, hundreds of people.
Now, I do it all the
So-
time. Not really. Yeah, I guess I should
Applause for Corey here.
I should kill twins before we go.
Let's do that. That's a nice way to kind of like end the stream.
Yeah.
If you manage to beat him.
If
If.
usually I would go to Sacrament and I'd upgrade. I can upgrade like 3 times now my weapon, but let's just go in. Let's just go for it. It's the first time I've made food this whole time.
The next time I have to again like change my setup a little bit. We'll do more of these Q&As and so on, right? But I need a setup where I see everything on one screen, including playtime.
All right, let's fully buff up for this last one then.
Nah, I do it raw.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah, of course.
All right, let's go.
Let's see.
Little parry, little cheeky parry.
Nice.
I can never remember if the first one is fast or slow. Still to this day.
Let's see how we're doing.
Thank you, Randy. I was able to listen, but I was just like,
choose
Corey's
not to.
doing
Goodness
very well
gracious.
so far.
Phase transition soon.
Yep.
There it is.
I played this game so many times in multiplayer. I hate when the bubbles come up.
Mm-hmm. And you get people running across the arena like headless chickens, not knowing where to put them,
Yes.
and then you just have no space.
And rezzing, right? Like you can resurrect people in co-op, but then it becomes this whole thing of like,
Area denial.
should you or don't die in a bubble.
You have to position them nicely along the edge.
boom, 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 boom.
For giving away the strats.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, keys were already given out, so if you only join now, you're too late.
We'll disrespect him and we'll let him burn to death.
Let me just check if you missed anything.
Any last minute questions you see in the chat that's interesting?
I mean, I think I already kind of like said too much anyway, which usually happens to
Yeah.
me. So, some of the
It's easy
stuff
to do.
is just for Wicked Inside. Well, there you go. Corey beat him. Guys, that is basically it. Again, like if you have not signed up yet for co-op for the release, please do. There's a little questionnaire that we have everybody fill out and so on. And then once you actually get to play co-op, please give us the feedback, right? Just play it, have the time of your life, and then, give us feedback. If you see any issues, if you see any stuff that isn't right, please also don't bombard us with negative Steam reviews. That actually does not help immediately, right? The thing where you could help us the most is just, go to our Discord, go to our forum, write in all that feedback. I promise you, we're burning the midnight oil. We're working as hard as we can, as fast as we can on fixing all of this stuff and making sure that you have a really great time. We're trying to do really wild things and push the genre forward and push the status quo and everything, right? This is not easy work. It's like we are all working extremely hard on all of this. So give us your feedback. If there's anything wrong, we'll fix it. And I hope you guys will have a really great time. Because what we are pushing there, I think, is very different. But I think people, or hope people, will be able to appreciate that we're trying to do something that is, finally different from what's already out there, to give you the kind of like multiplayer experience that I was always dreaming about when I was younger. That was never really realized yet. So that's it. I think that's a good point to basically drop it. So Corey, thanks for playing.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
And I'll
It's
see
good.
with that.
It's a good
Thank
time,
you,
and
everybody.
they're gonna
Thanks for watching us, and then
they're gonna enjoy what we have in store. We have a lot coming up. So yeah, thanks everybody.
yep, cool. Thank you guys, and bye.
Bye.
Boy, boy. All right, guys. Well, that was very good. I thought there was. I really love it when the devs do this stuff. And sorry I wasn't able to sit with you guys for the whole reaction, but I was able to listen in. And I think essentially there were some really good nuggets, especially when he talks about the number of realms that they have. They might have to obviously limit that, which my mind, I was like, that's got to be the case. And one of the questions I asked, it didn't get answered. But if I get to sit down with Thomas again in the future, that I'd love to be able to figure out is like, will they, add in some optional ways that we as fans can support it? Like, let's say they, you can have 10 hosted realms or something like that, whatever that number is, like maybe an optional sub, or maybe the ability to like, hey, can I buy more realms, because there's a cost to that on their end. And that's where I was like, I wonder how that's going to work. And the fact is that there's no microtransactions game that, or their best bet would be to come out with an expansion every year, so that there's always that yearly check-in and that yearly like, oh, the next chapter 2.0 is is here, and it's an expansion, etc. But it's going to be really neat to see overall business wise what that looks like, because I know I pay for a private realm server for my kids in Minecraft. Microsoft likes making that money. They're not going in that direction, and they continue to be against that viewpoint, which I think honestly is a great thing. It's a really great thing at the end of the day. But anyway, I hope you got something fun out of this live stream and the video that was kind of recorded at the start of it, and the mustache that I'm rocking as I grow back the beard. If you guys want to see more about that, check out the start of the stream or the video VOD when it's done. If you guys have hit that like button, thank you so much. And even if you haven't, I'm just glad that you're here. Also, the hype button again to call it out, whether you use it here or on use it somewhere. You get like 3 a week. You get a hype 3 videos a week. And I hope that we'll be seeing more of each other very, very soon. I've just know that I've been body slammed, it feels like. And, there hasn't been a lot really to talk about with the game, because we're all still in this kind of multiplayer waiting room. But hopefully we'll get some streams and get that kind of rocking and rolling. I've been, I got a whole bunch of games. I need to sit down and kind of, knock them out of the park. Anyway, that's going to be it. I'm going to wish you guys all the absolute best. Thanks for being here, and hopefully I'll see you in the next thing. But until then.